Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Education. Today, Tuesday, April 21st, this meeting is now called to order. Mrs. Smith, please do roll call.
Ms. Weems?
I am here.
Mr. Johnson?
You're muted.
Sorry, present. Sorry, I thought
It's
it
okay.
the other
It's
way.
okay. Okay. Ms. Cummings?
Here.
Mr. Rich?
Here.
Mr. Mukama?
Here.
I myself here. Ms. Green? You have a quorum, but I'm getting some feedback.
Thank you. Just
Everyone
a
can
reminder
mute
to
their
those
mic.
participating, if you mute your mics, it's helpful. Also, for those that are watching and viewing from our audience, please be patient with our technology as you may not be seeing some pictures at this time. We are working on that issue, but do know that those people are present. So please be patient with us. At this time, we will move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, we will be led by Mrs. Cummings.
I pledge allegiance to the flag,
of the United States of America,
and to the republic
the republic
which stands
which
For which it
stands
one
stands,
nation,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with
indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mrs. Cummings. Moving to the next item is items from the president. And the first thing is the approval of the agenda.
Miss Green,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, we need to approve the agenda.
Yeah, that's what I just asked for.
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe my feed went out. My apologies.
Yep, that's what I
Motion
just
to
called
approve.
for. Mrs. Weems, thank you. And is there a second?
Second,
We have a motion to approve the agenda as written by Mrs. Weems, supported by Mr. Johnson. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion. Mrs. Smith, will you please do roll call for the approval?
Mr. Johnson?
yes.
Ms. Weems?
Yes.
Mr. Mukama?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Ms. Cummings?
Yes.
I myself, yes. Ms. Green?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Moving to the next item from President is announcements. Welcome again to the April 21st Farmington Board of Education meeting. Please understand that there may be some glitches during our virtual school board meeting. We have experienced some connections being lost. If that happens, those members will rejoin the meeting. It is also helpful to the members in the meeting if you mute your mic if you are not speaking. As all of our members are participating remotely, I am formally giving voting rights to all board members for remote voting. The next meeting of the Board of Education will be held on May 5th at 6:00 p.m. The meeting is open to the public and will be cablecast live on TV 10. Public comment is available via email at info@fpsk.net. Again, that's info@fpsk12.net and via phone at 248-426-5000. Public comments will be shared after items from the secretary. Our next agenda item is items from the secretary. Mrs. Smith?
Thank you, Ms. Green. Communications are acknowledged, and when appropriate, a response is provided. Our first correspondence was from HSES, Head Start Grant Application. Our second one was from Darlene Posh, credit or no credit. Our third one was Robert and Amy Jones regarding secondary grades.
Thank you. And moving to our next item, it is public comments. There are several public comments, so please bear with me if I do not pronounce a name correctly as I read them. Also, I want you to know that any comments received after 5:30 will be read by Mrs. Cummings this evening. And so I will begin reading the comments. Also, good evening. Please understand that there may be some glitches again with our virtual board meeting. And if connection is lost, those members will rejoin. Public comment number 1. We are writing to ask you to reconsider the district's recent decision to only award credit, no credit to secondary students and give students the opportunity to choose between traditional letter grades and credit, no credit. The credit, no credit grading system is incongruent with the district's statement that it will hold students harmless. High-achieving students, particularly juniors and seniors, most certainly could be harmed by not receiving letter grades because they do not have the opportunity to improve their GPA. Decisions regarding admissions and merit-based aid, particularly at the most selective colleges and universities, often come down to the slightest improvements in GPA. This could be crucial for students who are trying to qualify for merit aid, scholarships, NCAA eligibility, military appointments, etc. Without a GPA for half of their junior year and no spring SATs, how will our current junior students stand out in the college application process? We can't control the decisions made by the College Board, but the district can make the choice to help their high-achieving students rather than hinder them. Many of our students will be competing for opportunities against students from other states who are expecting to return to school this spring and receive traditional grading for this semester. The fairest approach is to address this disparity is to allow our students to choose their grading structure. Students have lost control over many aspects of their lives in the last several weeks. FPS has the opportunity to give them a voice in a decision that will have a large impact on their futures. Many of our neighboring districts, including Southfield, West Bloomfield, and Northville, are giving students the opportunity to choose between traditional letter grades and credit, no credit. Farmington Public Schools should follow their example. Sincerely, Robert and Amy Jones. It is my understanding that if a child was passing at the time when school closed, they will graduate, and the additional information from there forward is for enrichment purposes and to make sure they stay engaged, of which I have no problem with. Please correct me if I am mistaken regarding this. If that is the case, why can't the student keep the grade that he or she had earned when school closed? The student would then receive credit except the grade they had would be documented. Parents and students should have the option to then decide if they want the grades the student ended up until closure or credit or no credit. The grades could be documented and a notation made on the transcript that they received credit or no credit. I am not the only parent that has an issue with this. In my estimation, this can easily be remedied. A change can be made. It is not written in stone. These students have worked what is a lifetime for them, all to get credit or no credit. Just doesn't seem right. Tony D. Cannon. Next letter. I'd like to share my deep concern over the decision to outsource our IT department to Oakland schools. Please consider the impact this will have on the entire district. Below are some of the many benefits we have seen over the years. I strongly feel that this change will adversely impact productivity and, most importantly, our student learning. Quick turnaround time, personal connections with staff and students, deep knowledge of current technology, Quick response when tickets are submitted. Personalized training. Provides teaching and learning more meaningful and hands-on for classrooms. IT staff worked countless hours the summer of 2018 into the fall to prepare for the Google migration, often working late evenings and weekends to prepare for the new system. It was very successful and the issues were easily and readily accessed. Quick response when there are software glitches, hardware problems, as well as wireless connectivity. Having IT in-house makes it easier to streamline issues and have a systemic connection. Outsourcing IT with OISD will cause longer response time, which will cause an impact on student learning. Outsourcing things can will get lost in translation, which will cause serious time and a lot of hassle. IT staff was a huge integral part of developing a process to get technology into the hands of students, paraeducators, and staff during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for listening. Melissa Cole, Elizabeth Wilson, Kyle Curtis, Barry Knopfinger, Roisin Hunter, Angie Rittenauer, Tracy Willis, Kim Towler, Kelly Van Drossek, Pat Tazek, Teresa Gallivan, Kimberly Miles, Maria Blanco, Jennifer DeBella, Amy Foster, Doreen Swift, Kristen Ketzler, Allison Gay, Rachel Tetrick, Sean Kassab, Jason Rosen, Christy Donahue, Molly Grundle, Nisha Madison, Tiffany Vieter, Dawn Smith. The next one is additional thoughts on IT outsourcing. I am just so disappointed in the timing of this decision. When you consider the situation that we are currently in, I am just stunned that anyone would consider this to be a good idea right now, especially when you consider the need for IT at this time. Here is what I would like answers to. I would appreciate it if someone could explain the need for pursuing this now as opposed to the end of the school year. I would appreciate it if someone could explain the lack of input from the teachers, staff, and parents on this decision. I would appreciate it if someone could explain the reasoning behind this move. I would appreciate it if someone could tell me what this is like in other districts that have made this move. I would appreciate it if someone could explain to me the impact that could expect in Farmington. Barry Knopfinger. A few years ago, custodians were outsourced. While I would like to say that worked out well, I can't. The people who service our buildings are lovely people, but our buildings are filthy. There is no buy-in to be part of our Farmington family, and they do only what they absolutely have to. People who are part of our family work their hardest. Outsourcing our IT department will put us in line with the results of outsourcing our custodians. You lose that personal touch and desire to get things quickly and well. Please reconsider the decision to outsource these dedicated and hardworking people. Fran Zakalik, Christy Donahue. The next one, in my 23 years in FPS, I have never seen a more complete, caring, and hardworking department. I am shocked, as are many teachers, at this great loss. Roisin Hunter. Our next comment. Right now, our IT department is more important than ever before and is a key piece in our ability to reach our students from home. They are there for us at all hours of the day and night and are helping us via text, Google Meet, and replies to posts on the Facebook technology page. I do not believe that we have anywhere near the kind of support if our IT department is outsourced to Oakland schools. Please stop this from happening. Please, Angie Rittenauer. Our next comment, I can't even imagine how we would have put remote learning in place without our tech department. To blindside them with outsourcing their jobs in the middle of a global pandemic when you've worked so hard to put things in place for us. This feels low and nasty and shakes any trust I have in our districts dealing with employees. I am an employee and taxpayer. What are you thinking? More proof that no employee should ever turn his or her back to this district and its Board of Education. Shame on you, Tracy Willis. Our next comment. These staff members are integral parts of the Farmington Public Schools family. They understand the importance of technology in our everyday school lives and have done everything in their power to make sure it is working correctly and accessible for all, even before we started online learning. In the wake of this global pandemic, the IT department has been an excellent support for our students, staff, and families. Online learning is new for so many of us, and they were there to support us every step of the way. I am shocked that in the midst of everything that is going on in the world and how the IT department has stepped up to the challenge, that this is on the table. Kim Toller. Our next comment. Please reconsider this decision and do what is in the best interest of your teachers and students. Thank you for considering the impact this has on our district. Amy Foster. Our next comment. Please reconsider this decision and allow our amazing IT department to remain part of FPS. Doreen Swift. Our next comment. I would like to add my voice to the chorus of people who are objecting to the outsourcing of the informational technology services. This outsourcing will impact our entire district in a negative way. As a media aide, I get many calls from teachers who are having trouble with their technology. If I am not able to fix the issue for them, I know that I can call IT and get a quick, if not immediate, answer. Teachers rely on their technology, and when they have problems, we all rely on knowledgeable folks at IT to get the students back to teaching their lessons as quickly as possible. If the phone support is outsourced to Oakland schools, there will undoubtedly be a much longer wait for that assistance, as Oakland schools has many other districts to support. We will face the same issues with our ticketing system that we will face with the phone support, much longer wait times for the technology to be repaired. In addition to the issues of response time, having our own IT support unique to our district ensures that we have people who are familiar with our needs and know how to best serve us. Outsourcing support to Oakland schools takes away that familiarity and therefore a large level of effectiveness. If our IT support is outsourced, we will lose the bank of knowledge that our in-district support represents. Most of our IT folks have been with the district for many years, so they understand older technology and the history of technology use. They will therefore be better able to support our efforts. I have heard rumors of this sort of outsourcing for years and have always worried that it might actually happen. You could not make a worse move than to outsource our IT support. Please do not be penny wise and pound foolish. This is a terrible idea. Kristen Ketzler. Our next comment. As a parent in FPS, I am curious as to the reason this decision was made, especially now. The IT department is important to the online learning format we have been thrust into. They are a very important part of the district and deserve to continue in their current positions as FPS employees. I also find it odd that when we just approved your requested bond that includes technology upgrades, that you would outsource this department. It feels very wrong and unfair. I am asking you to reconsider this decision and continue to be the district we should be, not one that pushes people out. Allison Gay. The next comment. I hope that the Board of Education will reconsider the timeline and not implement this change for the upcoming school year. Jason Rosen. Next comment. I was shocked and frankly terrified to learn of the outsourcing of our IT department to Oakland schools. Countless times I've reached out to IT for big and small issues, but in the middle of teaching, when using technology that suddenly doesn't perform like I think it's supposed to, and I have no idea how to rectify the problems, always seems big. Our IT department has been quick and solid support. The IT department is priceless to teachers trying to utilize technology to the best of our ability and to the benefit of our students. I would like to share my deep concern over the decision to outsource our IT department to Oakland schools. Please consider the impact this will have on our entire district and especially our teachers, the very reason, the purpose for our existence. I would like to just take an additional moment to speak to the dedication of this staff in the middle of the pandemic. We would not have made it anywhere near where we are without this team. Parents and teachers have had countless technology issues that have been assisted and solved by this team at all hours. Pre-exempting Monday morning, I sent out an issue sometime Sunday, thinking it would be one of the first addressed Monday morning, but second only to teachers. The IT department through this pandemic has been working and supporting around the clock. I was responded to within minutes, and that IT support person hung with me back and forth until the issue was solved. This is just one example of the many I personally can recount. Outsourcing our IT is not the best decision for our district. Molly Brundle. Our next comment. I am very concerned about recently gaining knowledge through Facebook that an item on tonight's agenda is outsourcing our extremely valuable IT staff. If this is true, I would be highly disappointed that our leadership to make this decision at this time. Our IT department has been 100% integral in our continuing learning plan. We would not be even close to as efficient as we are without their hard work, expertise, and dedication to FPS. Please wait to make such a crucial decision. Also, please ask the people who are supported by them on a daily basis: teachers, staff, parents, and students. We cannot let go of the people who have truly been our godsend at such a difficult fork in the road. Laura Moyers. Our next comment. I have just heard that you are planning on or have already decided to outsource the FPS IT department. What a terrible time to begin making a decision like this. Do you have any idea how much time and effort the people in this department have spent these last weeks supporting the rest of the FPS staff? For you to even consider a move like this, just like a slap in the face. Regardless of any budget issues being the reason for this, now is definitely not the time. Rethink. What are you telling your FPS employees with regard to your appreciation for them? There are not enough words to express my dismay, sadness, frustration that is even an issue. Lisa Robbins, FPS employee. Next comment. I know that as a teacher for FPS, the IT department has been amazing with helping for every issue I have had from smartboards malfunctioning to sticky keys on Chromebooks. They have helped with software, hardware, and more. They are an integral part of the FPS system and should remain a part of the system. Please reconsidering outsourcing the IT department and keep them as part of the FPS family. Hashtag FPS Better Together. Tiffany Vitor. Next comment. I am a proud parent of 2 graduated girls who are doing very well in their careers. One is a second lieutenant nurse in the Army. The other is a data analyst for a major health company. I worked for the district for 20 years, so I have seen the changes since my children graduated. It's not a good change. First, when you chose to privatize our custodial, that was the biggest mistake. The turnover is great. The cleanliness of our buildings have suffered. Now privatizing our IT department. The amount of delayed time will be maxed out on getting services done or repairs. We need to keep our employees instead of privatizing our best assets. People that have experience and care about this district. It's sad to say that we're not that thriving district we used to be. This is coming from the heart of a parent. You need to think about this again and see that it is a huge mistake. Christine Kish. Our next comment. I would like to express my concern with outsourcing our amazing IT department. Our IT department has always been reliable, innovative, and helpful. They have especially shown their excellence during this extremely difficult time as we transition to remote teaching. They have been working harder than ever and have stepped up to help our district continue our tradition of excellence in teaching and impacting students. Please consider the many benefits of retaining our current IT heroes. Now more than ever, we see the importance of technology functioning properly, and we have our IT department to thank for making it happen. After our IT department has stepped in heroically to help us teach remotely, how can we possibly abandon them? The timing of this potential decision could not be worse. It is disrespectful at best to our amazing IT staff who are working harder than ever. Please consider this carefully. Lena Miles LaRosa. Next comment. Our IT department has always gone above and beyond for everyone in the district. Response time is always quick and the problem is resolved quickly and efficiently. During this time, our IT department has been heroic. Someone is always there to respond and resolve issues immediately. It could be 1 o'clock a.m. and someone will respond. If IT is outsourced, I believe our district will seriously suffer. The wait time will greatly increase. These people put their hearts and souls on the line for our district, and I think we are doing a serious disservice in letting them go. Please reconsider. Thank you, Catherine Cannon. Our next comment. I am disheartened to learn that the district plans to outsource the IT department. This department is a critical part of the FPS team and has worked tirelessly, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. This group is quick to respond to requests and always willing to educate and support even after hours. I am told the agreement Dr. Heitch entered into was never a contract to outsource the department. This was a plan to have services from a network engineer and a help desk. The help desk never materialized. Dr. Heitch and John Menier worked hard to keep the department. Please don't put money above the support this district needs. Outsourcing is not the answer. Thank you, Janet McCormick. Our next comment. I am writing to oppose moving our technology services to Oakland schools. I know this has been under consideration for a while, but the timing of this now is surprising. I cannot conceive that we would have been able to send over 3,000 Chromebooks home when schools closed and have a second wave of checkouts last week, not to mention support the needs of staff and students during an unprecedented time of 100% distance learning if we had been relying on services from Oakland schools. There is no way that we can maintain a level of service without our IT people on location in Farmington. Maybe this will be the arrangement, but even if it is, we cannot maintain the same level of services that comes from relationships. We have not seen an increase in quality of service after privatizing custodial services and losing dedicated, loyal members of FPS staff. The members of FPS IT know our staff, and they are good at differentiating service for each of us. FPS has weathered cuts of media techs in the past, but the one thing that has remained constant is that our support has truly been our support, because they are there for us. If we are to be serviced by an outside entity, we will lose quality of service. Whether or not we have to endure another shelter in place next year, the way we teach and learn in Farmington is going to change. Tech support is not simply making sure the network or the screen works. It means taking stress off of teachers so that they can really focus on students. Jim White. Our next letter. My name is Amy Garbakic, and I am an assistive technology specialist for our district. It is my job to provide technology support to my students in special education, which assists them in assessing the curriculum, as well as reaching their individualized education goals. I work directly with our district's IT department, and they assist me every day in helping deliver support to our students across the district. I'm writing to you to reconsider the decision to move our IT help desk to Oakland schools, as it will have a detrimental effect on our students, staff, and community. The contract we have with Oakland schools does not serve the needs of this district. Since we moved our Google administrative duties to Oakland schools, there has been a decline in our IT department's ability to specifically tailor how Google works for our district. Oakland Schools oversees many districts, and oftentimes settings specific to our needs can't be changed because it would change them for the whole county. Over the past few years, I have come to our wonderful IT staff with specific requests that affect our students. We looked into our options and reached out to Oakland Schools to put our ideas into action, only to have wait times up to 2 weeks or worse, find out the request was not correctly carried out. In the end, after weeks of waiting to support students, our IT department found a way to correct Oakland Schools' mistakes and close the ticket. Just this week, I had a student security issue with Google. I worked with IT staff to come up with our best guess on what was causing the issue. When we reached out to Oakland Schools for additional support, they were unaware of the feature we were requesting support for, and I had to provide them with information on the new feature. They still haven't been able to provide an answer. As we are still waiting for a solution from them, I have worked with our IT staff to determine the next best steps to take to protect our students. I have reached out to other assistive technology specialists in Oakland Schools who no longer have an IT department within their district. They have shared with me their frustrations in getting timely responses and support from Oakland Schools. IDEA mandates that assistive technology must be considered for all students in special education. When an IEP determines the need for assistive technology support, students, parents, and staff shouldn't have to wait up to 2 weeks before they receive the support they need. Furthermore, by waiting for Oakland Schools, it can cause delays in providing accommodations and support to students, which puts our district at risk of being out of compliance with students' IEPs. This can lead to legal and state corrective action plans against our district. Our goal is to support students and not cause more obstacles they need to overcome. In this unprecedented time of remote learning, our IT department has once and again gone above and beyond for our students. They have not only provided devices to families across the district, but they have worked with me directly to make sure we provide the appropriate devices and tools to our specialized learners. They have made themselves available via phone, emails, text, and virtual conferences for staff, students, and parents. They answer my one-of-a-kind request and always find a way to support me. To move the help desk to Oakland Schools, where support can be days or even weeks away, would truly be a disservice to this district and the community. Sincerely, Amy Garbakic, Assistive Technology Specialist, Farmington Public Schools. Our next letter, I am writing this in support of our IT department. They have been wonderful, supportive group of people for many years, but their skills were definitely put to the test recently. The IT department has always gone above and beyond to make teaching easier. We have implemented so much technology in recent years, and our IT department has been there to support us whenever and however we need. A phone call is usually all it takes to solve my problem. When I plan to teach a lesson and run into a technical problem, it can make my job a challenge. A call or email can help resolve the problem and allow me to do my job the way I intended. Over the past few weeks, our IT department has been the saving grace for FPS. Without their knowledge and willingness to step up and help teachers learn how to do our jobs in a whole new way, our students would be suffering. I am so thankful for all of their help. I fear that outsourcing this department to Oakland Schools would be a problem for FPS staff and students. We would not be able to provide the quality education that we are known for. Not having an IT department on hand ready to help our staff and students will put us at a disadvantage when it comes to delivering quality instruction. Please do not outsource the IT department. We need each and every one of these wonderful people. Thank you, Denise Mykrant, second grade teacher, Forest Elementary. Our next letter. Hello, board members. I hope this email finds you all healthy and safe during these stressful times. As I'm sure you are aware, many staff members throughout the community have been made aware of the possibility of our IT department losing their jobs. I know I don't know all the details, and I'm aware that this plan goes back a few years, but I'm asking you at this time to either delay your decision or figure out a work plan. Families within our district owe more to the small number of IT people than they will ever know. People like Patrick and Kathy and Tiffany and Christopher and anyone else I'm forgetting work tirelessly during normal hours to help everyone run our schools. Triple any of that and still wouldn't equal the amount of work they have put into getting Chromebooks into students' hands, a job that will be even more stressful when it comes time to return them, as well as all of the help they've given staff members as we try to teach and help our students from our homes. We need familiarity at this time, a time like this. We need names and faces we know and trust. With the confusion and worry and stress that FPS staff members are feeling, yanking away one of the few security blankets they have right now would be a horrible mistake. Not to mention that it would be a bad time to have more people lose their jobs. Thank you for all you do for our district. Stay safe. Sincerely, Nathan Ollie, Media Aide at Farmington STEAM Academy. Okay, sorry. Our next letter. A short 10 months ago, the introduction of the 2019-2020 budget reported that Farmington Public Schools was on target to vacating its presence on Shiawassee Hill by the end of 2021. A key part of the recommended right sizing of the school district by the Building and Site Utilization Committee. This board has reneged on that plan of action to the detriment of the district, the city of Farmington, and the school community. You have turned a win-win into lose-lose. The only rational alternative is for the district to consolidate elsewhere and make use of the long vacated and adjacent non-productive former district court property. Neither productive alternative is being pursued by this board. Why not? Dave York. Next letter. What Farmington Public Schools know and are capable of doing is below the state average in a state that ranks 46th in the nation based on NAEP results. The promoting and latest bond proposal, the superintendent warned audiences that if the bond proposal did not pass, instructional services that accounts for 85% of the budget would be at risk. District salaries and benefits claim over 86% of the district's general revenues. The state average is 75%, where Farmington used to be 2 decades ago. The board has failed for 15 years to address the structural problem in the budget, which has led to 15 years of stripping facility, technology, staff development, and instructional support monies out of the budget. Many district annual budgets were introduced with a warning from the district's chief financial officer that the budget structural problem remains in place. This board has done nothing in the proposed 2020-2021 budget to address this chronic problem to provide the funds required to improve student learning in the district. Why not? Dave L. York. Our next letter. The board is properly being advised and asked to approve the expanding the IB program into the middle schools not being pursued. Since 2005, the middle school configuration has been found to be based on flawed premises, broken promises of educational benefit, and a consistent record of failure to adequately prepare students to succeed in high school. The board, as part of the Building and Site Utilization Committee recommendations, had the opportunity to move the district forward to a K-8 grade configuration, with research showing the long-established national K-8 school districts better prepare students for high school than either middle schools or district that have joined the national trend to the K-8 grade configuration since the 2005 findings. The Farmington Middle School program is at the center of over 15 years decline in what Farmington students know and are capable of doing relative to other public schools at the county, state, and national levels. 15 years of decline, research-based superior models of effective classroom instruction, state-of-art school financing, and best practices in over 293 Michigan school districts and 45 states provides a clear mandate for change that is not being pursued and taken advantage of for rapid implementation to improve student learning. Why not? Dave L. York. Our next letter. It has come to my attention that the district is considering outsourcing all of our IT services to Oakland schools. I am aware that this plan was a possibility for a few years, but as a parent of 3 children in the district and an employee, I am both upset and saddened by this possibility. We have seen in the district what became of outsourcing custodial services. It's been a gross disappointment on so many levels. As a result, we've seen high turnover for custodians, a reduction in services, and a giant time sink trying to stay on top of the custodians to complete the task we need them to. The thought that IT, which carries out so much more importance in our day-to-day function, would suffer the same fate is hugely disappointing. We are always promised services will not change, but that is never the case. I want to share a personal story about what the IT staff has been for my family. I am the mother of a 15-year-old son with Asperger's syndrome. He is incredibly brilliant, passionate about technology and coding, and has the potential to be have an amazing career in IT, but is not always well received by his peers. In his final year at STEAM, the project he took upon himself was to create security cameras out of small computers called Raspberry Pis. He built a prototype, coded it, and when it was complete, I have never seen him more proud. 4 members of the IT staff came out to consult with him about if it was a real possibility to implement his camera and what would be required. They graciously responded to all of his emails when he had questions. They also featured him on the IT Twitter tech page. For the first time in his school career, he felt empowered, capable, and confident. I have never seen that child more proud. For someone who lacks confidence in so many aspects of his life, the one-on-one attention given to him by the department gave him one of the highlights of his time at FPS. This is the kind of experience that will never happen with services being outsourced by Oakland schools. My husband is a senior cybersecurity software developer at a Fortune 100 company. He has repeatedly said his access to tech and tech mentors when he was a kid is what inspired him and gave him the early background to succeed in his field. By the time our kids graduate, a tech background will not be a novelty. It will be a necessity. This change directly interferes with the progression to move more tech into the hands of our kids. Most recently, this has proven to be the recent COVID-19 events. Without the dedication and fast actions of our IT staff, we would have struggled to get our teachers and students the equipment they needed during this national emergency. There is no way Oakland schools could have provided the kind of quick support the department did when they were servicing so many other districts. It would be my hope that our talented and hands-on IT staff would have their responsibilities expanded to include more training, more workshops, more hands-on experiences for our kids, not less as you propose. All 3 of my kids are IT enthusiasts and coders. It already saddens me that they won't have their first real computer class until high school, which seems so far behind the times. The opportunities that the IT department specifically have given to kids have managed to counter this gross shortfall. By switching to Oakland schools, we're sending the staff the message that their tasks are limited to swapping our cables and cords and answering the help desk tickets. Nothing could be further from the truth. In addition, if this has been plan of action for years, I question the timing of this decision. I think to execute this when the community and staff are unable to rally behind our IT department due to a statewide lockdown is unfair and shady. It makes me feel like as a taxpayer, you wanted our input ignored. When the community just supported the district by passing a second bond, to hear this news feels like a slap in the face. I urge you to put the FPS community first and continue to keep our ID department in-house. Keep the momentum of our technology progression going and acknowledge not only what a fantastic job our IT department has done so far, but the potential they have to prepare kids and support staff in their futures, which more than likely will require some technological background. In 2020, this is not the place the district should be making cuts. FPS employee and mother of 3 FPS students, Natalie Richmond. Our next comment. I am disappointed that the district went to a credit, no credit for all classes. I understand that a percent of our community is in a difficult position during this challenging time, and the best alternative for those families is a credit, no credit situation. But credit, no credit should not have been applied for all students, specifically the IB students and also the AP students. They have kept up with all of their learning and turned in assignments. They should be awarded grades for their classes. These students are the top of our learners, and they signed up for a rigorous curriculum, and there is no reason they should not have grades awarded for the classes they are taking. I hope that the board can reconsider the blanket approach of credit, no credit for all students and allow those students who want to take a grade for their work. IB is a completely separate special program and should be handled separately. Judy Miller. Our next comment. First of all, to thank you so much for keeping us up to date as to what's going on in educating our children moving forward. I know it must be a major undertaking having to change the curriculum as we've known it in all these years. My daughter is a senior and has been accepted to a college to play volleyball and a small scholarship with the understanding that she had to bring her GPA up by just 0.2. With a grading system as it is now, trying to bring it to 0.2 is not going to be an option now, which means we lost scholarship money at this point. Yes, I am going to call the college and try to see if they will work with us. She was just on a roll this year into her own, and bringing up her grades was a top priority and her personal goal. She had a great first semester. Second semester was proving to be even better. She wanted to leave school with a bang on a positive note. Now trying to get her out of bed to do the online learning virtual video classes is proving to be more difficult. She is super frustrated that a pass or no pass is all she's going to get after all the work she put into trying to bring up her grades, go for the scholarship, and going on to bigger and better things to college and playing the sport she loves, volleyball. How do I explain to her that we need to continue to press forward, that she has to continue finishing high school? I think this really has gotten to her and has brought her self-esteem to a new low level. What do we have in place to help our kids understand the importance to continue and learn and keep their heads held high? Do we have video counseling or group chat, or do the teachers help boost their confidence and energy during their video chat time? Help. As a final note, I do hope whatever senior activities that are planned are going to be super awesome, crazy, and not the norm, as this year has been life-changing in more ways than one for the class of 2020. This class has changed what the new normal will look like for those classes to follow. Let's go out with a big, huge bang on a positive note, as they are our future leaders. Their future is bright. Darlene Posh. Our next comment. Thank you for the opportunity for public comment. I know that these are unprecedented times and we are doing our best. My public comment is regarding 2 situations: high school grading policy and middle school IB program at East Middle School. High school grading policy. While I understand the state recommendation is to provide credit, no credit, and I certainly understand the need to provide equitable learning, I feel offering credit does a disservice to many of our students who will continue to be high academic achievers even in this troubled time. Northville, for example, is offering the option of either credit or a grade based on student choice. I wish FPS had gone that route. I would like to know what parent or student input was sought in this decision, as well as if colleges and universities were reached out to beforehand to see how it will impact their admissions process. Middle year IB. I have a child that attends East Middle School. For the past 2 years, we have been told we were going to become an IB middle school years program. The kids have learned about learner profiles. The teachers have all been trained. We've been sold on how wonderful it is going to be. Now again, with no parent input and no notice to parents that this vote was occurring, the district administration is recommending the program to be halted because of cost. Looking through what I can find from just this past year and the out-of-state travel from last year, FPS has already spent $2,436.80 in out-of-state conferences in 2018-19 in preparation for MYP, airfare and registration only. $9,500, 2019 for IB candidacy fee, MYP. $6,475 workshop fees, September 2019. Note, this includes 7 registration. It appears the conference was held in Florida. This does not include travel cost. 744 training MYP. By my account, that is $19,155.80, and that is only what I could find. I am sure the true cost is much, much higher. All to find out that FPS is now going to drop the program because of cost that they should have known about up front. Staffing requirements, prep time requirements, etc., that are part of the program. I say this not because I am enamored with IB, nor to embarrass anyone. I say this because once again, FPS has not looked down the road, and the result is added cost and upset parents. This just isn't about grades in a program that didn't come to fruition. These issues are part of the greater pattern within FPS. A lack of foresight, continuity, collaboration with parents, students, and communication. We have to do better. We have to plan better because our children deserve better. Thank you, Julie Poison. Our next comment, I'm writing to express disappointment with the decision to outsource IT services in the district. Our IT employees have been caring, prompt, and professional, and it's unclear whether we will be able to retain this talent under the plan to outsource. I'd like to know if there will be a place for each employee we currently have in IT under our iOS umbrella, or if we are at risk of losing these valuable people. I have personally had someone from IT in my room to fix an issue with a projector within 15 minutes of calling to ask for support. That's a high level of service, and we can't afford to compromise our standards when student learning is so closely tied to the functionality and reliability of tech. I hope that the Board of Education looks for any options that could allow this reconsideration of this outsourcing contract, and at least looks for ways to ensure continuity of staffing in the event this plan goes forward. These employees are part of the FPS family. Respectfully, Acacia Williams, Media Aid, Longacre, and Beechview Elementaries. Mrs. Cummings, would you read the rest of the comments, please?
Yes. The IT department has, and just for clarification, I believe these are phone-in messages that I'm reading. So the IT department has been understaffed for years. You didn't do anything about it, and outsourcing isn't the answer. That was Cora Foster. Calling regarding the outsourcing of the IT department. It is a money grab. People in the IT department have been dedicated, and for them to be cut without any notice is pretty sad. You should have given them a chance to take a pay cut. That's Ellen Houghton. Motion to outsource the IT staff during this time is very difficult. How will things be supported during this time? From Stephen Colts. I don't think outsourcing is the ideal choice for what you guys are doing. That's Timothy C. Dear Farmington Public School Board and community members, my name is Renee Ali. I'm in my 20th year as a first grade teacher at Farmington Public Schools. I am proud of our district, proud of our administrative school board, and grateful for all voices to be heard at tonight's meeting. During the last few days, I have heard that there may be some changes to our IT department, including outsourcing. It is my opinion that this would be detrimental. Each year as a teacher, I receive help from our amazingly patient, efficient, and knowledgeable IT experts. When these heroes come to the rescue, they are not only helping me, but also helping my 26 first grade learners and their families. I've never had a request that wasn't attended to quickly. In the past, it has been over the phone, through email, via remote access, or simply showing up at my classroom door with an invisible red cape on. In the last month, the patience, knowledge, and superpowers of our IT department has only multiplied. I do not hide the fact that technology is not my thing. Give me a book, paper, Crayola marker, and a group of first graders, and I'm in my zone. Since Michigan schools announced their shutdowns on March 12th, my comfort zone needed to change. Luckily for me and hundreds of other teachers, our FPS IT department hasn't missed a beat. We hit the ground running and we're connecting with our classes virtually within mere hours. This, of course, was a collective effort, but the behind-the-scenes work of this department was no doubt working overtime for all of us. They helped this hands-on teacher learn to connect with her learners and families in a whole new way. I am so excited about the strides that Farmington Public Schools are making this year, and especially in the last few weeks. Our response in using informational technology to drive instruction is something we should all feel great pride in. Many school districts were not able to make such a fast and seamless transition. We are models for many nearby districts. When making the decision on how to proceed with our IT department, I ask that you continue to consider the collaboration and human connections that have helped to drive our success. Keeping our momentum and our fabulous team intact will only benefit all stakeholders in our already amazing district. Thank you for listening. Renee Ali, first grade, Farmington STEAM. And that appears to be the end of the comment. I don't see any more. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mrs. Cummings. I would also like to encourage all public people who have submitted public comments to stay tuned for the remainder of our school board meeting, as many of your questions or concerns would be answered as we go into district updates, discussion items. So I encourage you to stay tuned so that you can have access to that information as well. I am aware that maybe not all comments or concerns or questions will be addressed, but I'm hopeful that it will give you more factual information related to many of your comments and questions. Moving forward to our next item, which is district updates. We're going to begin with our continuity of learning plan and next steps, and our presenter will be Mrs. Hendricks.
Hi, welcome. Can you see my face now?
Yes.
Well, I thank you for letting me be here along with Colleen Stam from our Instructional Services Department. We're excited to talk to you about a number of topics today. But we're first going to talk about the continuity of learning plan. First, I would like to thank the teacher who led a Google Meet last week with their 4-year-old on their lap, the nurse who works the night shift and has to consider how to get sleep during the day while also trying to process the continuity of learning plan, the father who has 8 kids and is trying to keep track of learning for all 8 students during this time, the building administrator who sends out a weekly video message to her students without fail, no matter how many takes it takes, the student who is spending time to make sense of lessons coming from 7 teachers. I share these because these have been phone calls and or emails that I've gotten over the last number of weeks that really ground me in understanding that everyone has a personal context here that they are operating in and to balance all the roles they have in their life. And I'm extremely thankful for the community, for the staff, and everyone that has worked tirelessly to get the continuity of learning plan in place. And while it is a plan and it is substantial, we do understand that everyone is meeting that plan in their own context, and we need to be very sensitive to that. So a few weeks back in March, which I guess is about 7 weeks ago now, Farmington Public Schools very quickly moved into the academic enrichment and reinforcement plan. That plan took place in about a 3-day period to go from in-person instruction to online instruction. A large number of people came together to develop that plan. Instructional technology, building administrators, district level teacher leaders, central office administrators, and I could go on and express more. But we very quickly turned around to roll out this plan. As we launched over spring break, we knew that it was very high probability that we would be closed for the remainder of the school year. So over spring break, we started to conceptualize, based on that academic enrichment and reinforcement plan, our continuity of learning plan that has since been launched this last week. We had to make sure that we added some components to our original plan. For example, we had to be sure that we had clear and consistent content focus through identifying essential standards. We had to really consider how to monitor student learning and participation. We had to think about what instructional routines and structures would help this learning environment. We had to think about instructional minutes and schedules and many more things. And in order to do that, to develop the density of plan that we ended up launching, it was imperative, despite the accelerated pace of that work, to ensure multiple voices were brought to the table. To this end, just in my area alone, instructional services, action teams were created that included central office, building administrators, union leadership, teachers and teacher leaders, guidance counselors, and more, to inform and kind of fill out the plan. And this needed to happen to meet the needs of all students and all staff. We also wanted to make sure during this accelerated time pace that we had comment groups that could offer and help us bring clarity and perspective on the plan so we could check and revise our own thinking. So within about a 5-day period coming off from spring break, we had these action teams in place, we had these comment groups in place, and curriculum instruction alone had 11 work groups with over 130 participants in total. The high skill and high will demonstrated by these leaders was profound and extraordinary, and connecting all the pieces together into one whole was a coordinated effort. Being new to Farmington Public Schools in mid-January and then connecting with staff in such an extraordinary way in mid-March was quite a pleasure for me to see where the high skill and high will is in our district and what we have the potential to do. As we engaged in building the plan, which has since been approved by the ISD as required by the executive order, additional layers needed to occur kind of during week 2 of our development. And part of that came around thinking about the rollout. And so as we rolled out, we had continued collaboration amongst building administrators and teacher leaders. And teachers were engaged in intense professional development last week. Much of their time was spent in small groups, collaborative groups being facilitated by building teacher leaders, as well as being offered a variety of professional learning sessions online, as well as coaching sessions with our district level leaders and all of our instructional coaches, K-12. And so it's been a pretty immense process, and it's been a pleasure to be a part of. We also made sure that last week there was intense collaboration with PR and community relations around development of parent messaging. We shared out a video message, we developed and built out a continuity of learning plan website, as well as other materials. We know that this plan is met with some concerns around the secondary grading practices. We know that there are mixed reviews or feelings about that. We had a pretty large team come together of over 25 people who talked about grading practices and graduating our seniors. People on that committee spanned a lot of different roles in the district: central office leaders, building administrators, guidance counselors, teacher leaders, and they spent significant amount of time working through multiple models of thinking about, and in thinking about those models, they thought about what were the opportunities, what were the the challenges? What were the barriers kind of inherent in each model? They even, as they went through each model, kind of ran student scenarios through the models to kind of see how different kids would be treated within the models. And in reviewing all of the models, whether it was credit, no credit, thinking about hybrids between offering grades for some and choice of credit for others, we really kept coming to a place of two important considerations. That the instruction, student engagement, and content focus during this semester was not representative of a typical semester. We had teachers engaging in new instructional approaches. We had students engaging differently, as well as a reduced focus on the number of standards that we were attending to. And so, for the lack of a better word, the credibility or the validity of that grade wasn't comparable this semester to other semesters, and therefore the impact on the GPA is a little more variable. And in thinking about grades, we had to think not only would grades go up, but grades could go down during this time as well. And in thinking about semester 2 grades and where they were before we launched into our continuity of learning plan, we only had about 6 weeks of instructions to kind of establish kind of that base start to the semester. So with that, in addition to understanding that students had a lot of varied contexts and very contextual factors that might impact their ability to participate and even have access to a grade, really concerned us. So we were concerned that not every student had equitable choice about choosing credit or no credit versus choosing a grade, that some of their ability to participate was not of their own choosing. They did not have power to necessarily make that choice, and we thought that that would be inequitable. We really thought deeply. This group met multiple times, continued to reflect and refine their thinking as we shared the ideas with different comment groups, and this is where we landed. We are in line with 8 other districts in the county. We're in line with what a lot of universities and colleges are actually doing for their own undergraduate students, and those students are then thinking about their transcripts, moving on to additional schooling beyond college. We do feel like we have support around the guidelines provided by various organizations and the states, as was mentioned earlier in a public comment, the state recommending credit or no credit. Every district's going to make their choice, and I think every district has had an intentional process about making their choice and has their thinking and rationale. This is where we landed. We have been hearing from families. It's important for us to hear what families are thinking and what they're feeling, because that does have the potential to impact our understanding. But we have remained committed to continuing with this credit, no credit at this time as we roll out our continuity of learning plan. We were in contact with colleges and universities in our local area. We were in contact with the ISD, who's also had contact with colleges. And right now we're seeing colleges coming out with statements about adjusting their admissions processes. And we've also seen that NCAA has shifted their eligibility in light of the impact that COVID is going to have on a large majority of students or juniors and seniors at this time. So the lesson I've learned here in Farmington is how high skill and high will we are, and how highly collaborative we can be, and that we can tackle tough challenges and we can tackle tough questions, always keeping students at the center. So I do want to let the community know and let the Board of Ed know that the planning hasn't stopped. While we've developed the continuity of learning plan, we've put it in place and it's being implemented. There's continued work in thinking about our transitions into next year and the implications of closure at this time on that. So the work has not stopped in this area, but I will like to say thanks again to everyone that collaborated with this work.
Thank you. Any board comments or questions? Mrs. Cummings.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone involved in the planning, the development, that goes from the teams that got together to create this plan and you know, to the administrators and teachers that have worked to implement and get this plan rolled out. So I'm on a receiving end of the plan, and I do understand the amount of time and effort that has gone into it, and that will continue to go into this. I teach online, so I understand that world, and I know that it takes a lot of time and preparation. So I just want to say thank you, and that's my that's important. And then I also want to share that I understand the perspective from families and parents and students, and this is an adjustment, and this is challenging. So I appreciate the patience I've seen. I got a call today from a teacher. I put a question out there, and I immediately got a call, which was very helpful for us as we were really struggling to figure something out. But now it's all resolved, and now I know where to find the assignment and the link, and so that's good. So I do appreciate that support and patience. And I would just encourage our teachers to remember that every student is dealing with a different situation. Some days are better than others, and they're all facing different challenges. So I think patience is critical right now, and I know that goes both ways because our teachers are at home and they're experiencing their own challenges. So thank you to everyone, and thank you for the hard work to put this together and to continue to improve as we move through this unprecedented time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Muckmel, I saw your hand up.
Yes. Margaret, can you just let us know whether your committee, and I'm sure you did, consider the implications for our IB program? There was a public comment about that earlier, and I was just wondering if you could address that for us.
So when we looked at the various models, one of the things I referenced was taking students through each model. Mm-hmm. And so we did think about the IB and the AP. And what we felt confident about is both IB and AP are continuing to allow for awarding of credit and diplomas because they themselves have adjusted their testing requirements. So our AP students will be able to still show their understanding on AP tests given actually at home online, which is very new for the AP. We will be able to use those scores to still support students in their entrance into college. And so they haven't lost all the preparation work they've done for performing on that assessment, which is one of the big reasons why students take that class because of the establishment of credit, et cetera, towards their college. The IB program as well has shifted their testing so that we're using, in the IB, there's internal and external assessments. And so our IB students are able to still use the internal assessments towards the pieces that they need for getting that IB diploma. So AP and IB is not simply about a GPA and a grade. It has a larger context that exists in kind of the overall system. So we felt that students still had access to what those would offer on their transcripts as well as upon their graduation, because those other pieces were not taken away. And I commend the College Board and the IB for making the adjustments that they made.
Thank you.
Mrs. Smith, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you for all the hard work that you've done. Sorry, I haven't been able to meet you other than through this way. But thank you for all the work that you have done and put in. Curriculum is the key. I want to also piggyback on what Ms. Cummings has stated regarding the whole, colleges right now. We did have a webinar today that I wasn't able to take part in with Michigan School Board Association, but I did take classes this weekend, and those things were discussed as well. Students don't have to worry. Parents don't have to worry. The no credit, it's going to get them in college. So I want parents to know that they don't, and I understand they're going through a rough time, and they put a lot of work in, but thank you to the students for still doing their work. but
Mhm.
they don't have to worry. They still will be able to graduate and go. And those that are undergrads will have the opportunity to go higher up too for higher
Yeah.
learning.
Yes, we appreciated NCAA making their eligibility shifts in terms of how they treat this semester. And you'll find that universities like Harvard have updated their websites to indicate. So, for example, Harvard will be waiving SAT scores or
Right,
ACT scores. They will
right,
also be taking a look at students' GPAs and removing this semester as needed, as they look, because they know they have large pools of candidates going
right.
through the same thing. And so they've got to think about how to compare applications for those that did grades and didn't do grades. And so they'll be doing some norming processes within their application. Not all universities have publicized yet their plans for juniors because they're really focused on seniors right now. And they've been
Absolutely.
delaying deadlines for accepting applications and things like that so that seniors who were accepted can
Right,
continue to attend in the
right.
fall.
Well, thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you. It's been a blessing coming to Farmington.
Well,
Thank
good.
you.
Welcome.
Mrs. Weems?
Yes, I echo all of my colleagues' comments. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who put a great deal of thought into this. I know that there was a lot of thought and a lot of planning put into this. I obviously understand a lot of the perspectives, having three kids of my own, one in high school and two in middle school. So I share some of the same concerns that I've been hearing and that were read aloud by Mrs. Green. These are really difficult times, and I appreciate that this experience is going to be different for every child. So I definitely appreciate the focus that the district put into this with respect to equity. And I'd like for you to speak a little bit about that to help people understand, sort of how how the district came to this decision. I certainly appreciate that there's no way that we can meet everyone's needs, especially in this environment, let alone if we were, back physically in space. But it would be helpful to kind of understand that. I'm glad that the district, considered college applications and all of that sort of thing. There's also scholarships to consider, though. And so often, we don't get that same consideration at the scholarship level. And again, appreciate that we're not going to satisfy all needs. These are really challenging times. But if you can speak to sort of the equity component that may have driven some of this, that would be helpful.
I do want to urge, obviously, any parent to communicate with the scholarship groups that they're working with and the universities. A lot of the counselors, college admissions counselors are out there are really urging people to communicate because they might be able to alleviate some concerns that parents are having, because we obviously can't make a promise for every university or every scholarship. In thinking about the equity piece, what we considered was really that base is, does every student have equal access to the online instruction? So we have to think about, do they have the technology? Do they have the Wi-Fi, which we have really worked to support with distributing large numbers, probably close to 3,000 devices, as well as adding in Wi-Fi spots. So we try to support that level, but we still have people that have, and we have teachers that are experiencing differences in connectivity to the experiences. We have to think about the family support when you have multiple students in the home, elementary, middle school, and high school, with different kids needing different supports to engage in that learning. So what's the equity in terms of the parental supports? We're not talking about parents who aren't choosing to support. We're talking about parents who are also having to manage full-time jobs, like myself currently, working my full-time job and supporting my fifth grader. And I only have one student. So we were thinking about the technology, we were thinking about the Wi-Fi access, we were thinking about the supports that the parents would have to provide with 1, 2, 3, 4 students in managing their own roles as parents, as a mother or a wife or a student themselves, or working, being an essential worker. So we also realized that I'd heard from a parent who they were working, and the older child in high school was actually taking care of the needs of the younger children because the mother or father had to work, was an essential worker. And so we kind of tried to look at what are all the contextual factors that might impact participation. And if my participation is impacted on factors that I don't have control over, then does that grade represent what I know and am able to do? And what would that impact that grade would then have within a transcript? And so we really just kept analyzing all of the contextual factors that might impact the student in thinking about the equity. I hope that attended to your question.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rich.
Hi, so just a quick question with regards to the IB. I know that you mentioned that the AP has given guidance about doing their exams online. With IB, I remember internal assessments being a good chunk of
Yes.
Your end grade, but then have we received any guidance yet from the IBO about external assessments for the end of the year being done online?
They have not. They're not moving forward with external assessments based on the prior communication that we had. That work is based on all the work for students will be based all on their internal assessments, that they will not be following suit with what the AP is doing.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who's been working on this. I'm sure this wasn't your plan for the first big project to be doing in our district, but thank you for all the work that you and your team have been doing.
Well, it definitely accelerated the relationship building, and it definitely accelerated learning what everyone's expertise is and how to connect them. And so that's been a powerful experience for me as a leader. And it's also elevated my relationship and experience with myself, fellow central office administrators that have been worked tirelessly as well. So it almost feels like I've been here for a couple of years, and that's a good thing. So that's a positive that has come out of this.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, did you want to add anything?
Yes, again, Margaret, thanks for everything you're doing. I've got one graduating and, another one with special needs. So I'm kind of all over the place, and thank you. It's been a great process. Glad you're here. And, thanks for all you do on behalf of all the parents.
And thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Margaret, I just want to, again, reiterate what's already been said, and which is very obvious. The time and the quickness with reaction to how you led the team and all the volunteers that dedicated themselves to the development of this plan. Couldn't be prouder. You guys have done just an amazing job. And so we want to extend our appreciation and congratulate you guys. I was excited and proud to be able to share your model with several other districts as well. So thank you for leading that in that component too. And I also appreciate you talking about the impact in talking with colleges. Today, Mr. Muckmal and I participated in the MASB webinar, and they did again talk very much about how many districts were doing which, and the majority of the districts were doing credit, no credit, it aligns. They said actually colleges are encouraging districts to select the college no credit, so they have some consistency on their end as well. So I think that was really good, and thank you for mentioning NCAA, and several others are coming up, as this impacts everyone across our country, not just within our district. It's impacting everyone everywhere, and so we're learning as we go, and we certainly want to thank our parents for their time. And I'm going to ask if you would just talk 1 minute about some of the parents' concern about students not being motivated to continue to do their best. Can you just talk briefly, because I know we talked during Academic Excellence this week about how will you guys as a staff be monitoring students, reaching out to them and encouraging their participation?
So motivating student engagement. I wish I had a silver bullet for that in thinking about all education. And we obviously would hope for each student to be internally motivated and self-regulating their own learning. And we have a number of students in Farmington that do kind of just pursue that learning and that building that skill set for where they want to go in the future. It's not lost on me that grading is often an incentive for some students, but fundamentally we're here to support the energy and the love of learning. And so we do know, though, that we've had parents reach out that says, if there's not a grade, then what's the motivator? And obviously, it's at this time, kids need structure and routine, and losing in-person structure can be a challenge for a lot of kids for various reasons. And so by connecting with the continuity of learning plan, they're able to do that. One, we're still addressing new content that's supportive of the next courses that they're going in. They're still engaging in critical thinking and problem solving, which are all of those soft habits of mind that are needed when we think about college and career ready students. So there are a lot of reasons why engaging at this time is really important. We have been talking to staff about what role do we play in motivating student in terms of the type of tasks we're designing and how meaningful they are, and where can we provide student choice and voice in the types of activities they're doing to help develop some internal motivation. We are asking staff to have students do various assignments as formative assessment assignments so we can check on their learning and offer them feedback so that they can see where they are and where they might need to go. And that allows staff to kind of know where to go next with their instructional planning if they know where students are. But what's really important to us right now is, well, all of it's important, but something that's elevated right now is that social emotional piece. And so each building is developing an MTSS process where we're monitoring participation and engagement and looking at what % of students each week are participating. And if we see kids that aren't participating regularly, we want to reach out to the students and the families. Not as I got you, but as a reach out to say, tell me what's going on. How are things going? How might we be able to help you? We would like to see you in class. I've missed you. Things like that, and see what we can do to help overcome some barriers. We know for some of our students, they have anxiety. And so we might provide supports for them to deal with their anxiety and invite them back into the learning experience. So we are putting in each building an MTSS process to kind of monitor participation as well as social emotional needs. All of our guidance counselors have been available for students. All of our social workers, all of our ancillary staff are coming together to provide social emotional supports for teachers, actually, as well as the community, as you've probably seen some of those communications go out to the community. But most importantly is making sure we have a safety net for our students at this time. So I hope that helped answer your question.
Thank you very much. That was exactly. Thank you. Dr. Herrera?
Thank you. Are we on to the next agenda item?
Yes.
Okay. Middle school innovation. Oh, I would like to just take a moment. Margaret is obviously not only impressive in terms of what she's put together, but she's also hard to distract during this time because I kept texting her, letting her know, now announce the good news, but she was too focused on this. So we did receive word today that the continuity of learning plan was approved by the Oakland ISD, and we're ready for full implementation. So yep. I've been joking with Margaret that she did pass her semester exam, and we've got the group moving forward. But again, that's just a big yes. Thank you to everybody that's been involved in this and everything you've said. And I just want to echo that briefly.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce the middle school innovation piece because this was probably another interesting first interaction with Margaret and probably Colleen with me is earlier this fall, I met with Kat Owsley from the Bosch Foundation, and she had indicated that the Bosch had an interest in supporting the district on some type of innovation related to STEM. And so I went to the initial workshop and learned a little bit more about their grant application, and came back and we talked a little bit about what we could apply for and what would fit in with some more future programming. So some of the things that, and I kind of want to frame this in this manner. You know, we talked about the MYP program a little bit, and there were some public comments that came out about that. You know, those are very difficult decisions to try to sustain or figure out how we would honor those past decisions. And the reality for the Board of Education right now is that when we have an opportunity to make a decision right now, we need to make those decisions in a way that it's moving the district forward Certainly, we want to honor past efforts and recognize past agreements, but we do need to make decisions that are going to take us in the direction we would like to head. So this Bosch grant was an opportunity for us to begin to address innovation and equity within our middle schools. So when I first spoke to Colleen and Margaret on this one, I asked them to consider coming at this from higher levels of tech integration to increase or improve student engagement and give them more opportunities to demonstrate their learning or engage in the learning. And then, of course, relate it to science and math in the middle school grades in a way that we could continue to build off of it and sustain it and grow it throughout the district, or certainly throughout our middle schools. So I think they did a very nice job. Apparently the reviewers at Bosch agree. And I would like them to maybe take you through their thought process and how they put this grant together and what we could expect to begin to see as early as next fall, as if we return back to some normalcy. Margaret, I'll let you and Colleen take it over.
Yeah, well, I think that this was another, whoops, someone has their mic. I think this was another example of the need for a quick turnaround. Bob and I were freshly introduced very early on, and he kept talking about innovation and trying some new things, and knowing that we had a lot of credible staff that was ready for innovation, or people at that tipping point, like, hey, if you could just give me something. So we really were thinking about how could we enhance instruction to better engage students, and really wanted to focus not just on academic proficiency, but real world competencies. And how do we engage kids in rigorous problem solving, creative thinking, having them produce ideas and knowledge, really getting them into some real career readiness experiences that develop those habits of mind of a scientist or an engineer, et cetera. And then we also want to say, how can we really use technology meaningfully? Like, how can that be how can meaning making and collaboration be at the center for students? And we felt that technology was a way for them to produce their knowledge and produce artifacts of their learning. So we really kind of talked about a lot of different instructional elements of STEAM, project-based learning, inquiry-based learning, and how could we leverage innovative practice. And so we decided to start strategically moving forward towards innovation in the middle school. And we did write a Bosch proposal that kind of, it has two elements that we'll be launching in our middle school. It first seeks to create action spaces, which is think time for teachers to engage in collaborative inquiry around reflective practice, around innovation, try things. We want teachers to have the opportunity to try and take risk. But we also need to think about what a classroom might look like that supports innovation in this type of work that might not be the same as a typical classroom. So what could some unused spaces at our middle schools look like to support these teachers and other teachers in doing innovation? So we applied for a grant with Bosch to support professional learning with staff, as well as the development of these physical spaces. Colleen and a number of building administrators, Elise, our tech integration specialist, Christy Feitfield, our secondary ELA coordinator, and many other people came together to kind of conceive the framework of this. So I'm going to let Colleen talk a little bit about the teacher cohorts that we're going to bring together, as well as a little more about the learning spaces. Colleen?
So I'm really excited right now to share this with you. This is a big project, and I'm excited for us to begin this journey, and the fact that we have this grant and that we can get moving with this. So like Margaret said, there are two pieces really to this. There's the piece of providing some action spaces for teachers so that they can enhance and engage our students in some deeper levels of learning, and like Margaret said, some career readiness. And then the second piece is providing those learning spaces to empower students so that they have this place where they can go and try these new innovative things and try and make mistakes and learn from them and really get into this real world space. So talking about the action spaces first, we'll have cohorts at the 3 middle schools, one at Power, one at Warner, and one at East, of 4 to 5 teachers. And we hope those cohorts to be different subject areas. So not just math and science. Math and science would, yes, be considered, but maybe pulling in CTE teachers or some social studies, language arts, maybe an art teacher. We want to make this so that it's across the building in different areas. And they'll engage in some collaborative inquiry. with using these spaces to allow kids to experiment. So we'll be providing some professional learning for the teachers, like some design thinking learning, some different, how can I be innovative? You know, I know how to use technology, but how do I really use that to get to some deeper learning? And then we'll be designing these learning spaces. So these learning spaces will have flexible furniture in them, have tech tools. We really are trying to get teacher voice into what tech tools do we want in there. So as we start getting these cohorts together, where is it they want to explore and what tools do we need to support that? We also want to we envision having these tools be mobile, some of them, so that if that learning space is being used by one teacher, it could be into another teacher's classroom at the same point, so we get more exposure to more students. And we really are highlighting innovative practices. There are some great innovative practices that are starting in our middle school. What we're hoping to do with this grant is to, one, highlight those practices, and then help others to engage in those practices and share and expand. So starting small, and then every year adding more teachers into the cohort and more teachers. You know, as the teachers join the cohort, the intent is you'll eventually want to share this. We also want to honor the range of teachers that we'll have in these cohorts. We'll have some who are already on their way. We'll have others who are just excited and want to begin. So we want to tailor what we're doing to fit all those different teachers. And then we just want to make sure we expand innovation across the middle school. We want as many middle school kids as possible to engage in these innovative practices. We're fortunate enough right now within our science and math programs to have resources that are a great foundation for innovation. Our new science resource, I've already been talking to a bunch of middle school science teachers who are ready. Some have already started to implement these great ideas of how do I integrate, how do I get kids to design, how do I get them to experiment, how do I get them to revise their thinking. So really we have a good foundation. How do we now take that next step? So I have to say, as a former middle school teacher for 15 years, knowing a middle school child, I am so excited for them to engage in this. This is going to be a great experience for them, and I'm excited to get the ball rolling and get this started and get it into some of our classrooms for next year.
And one of the pieces to add is that we've been bringing in collaborators from Oakland schools and other areas to kind of help us envision this, because we don't want to get stuck in what we know. We want to bring in new ideas. And so in part of the development of this grant and moving forward, we will have collaboration across various departments at Oakland schools, as well as some other resources that I know Bob has been eagerly kind of scouting out and seeing what's available to kind of bring in, because we have to make sure that we're not staying in our own ideas. We are bringing in other ideas into the works. So it is pretty exciting. I will say that when we wrote the first round of the grant, that we then layered in additional information. The first part we wrote was about teacher learning and building teacher capacity. What was the professional learning model that this was all going to be? Because we can say do this, we can say do this, we can give them these tools, but what's the professional learning model that'll maximize that'll get pushed forward? So we're really leveraging what we know is around job-embedded professional learning, collaborative inquiry research that teachers do to make sure that this becomes sustainable and growable for staff. And I think the professional development model was what was unique in our plan from Oakland schools when they looked at our plan, because it wasn't about just purchasing things. It was about having a comprehensive professional development plan connected to it.
And I really have to thank Dr. Herrera for that too, in that yes. This was not just going to be us creating this space. It was how are we going to actually use this space? And that was really exciting for me to be able to plan that and say, not just here's these fun tools, but here's what we're going to do with them.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Is there any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, we will move to our next discussion item on the agenda, which is discussion items. The first one, high school science course sequence with, I think, Mrs. Hendrickson and Mrs. Stam again.
Oh, yep. Welcome back. We're still here. So when I came in January, Colleen sat me down and was telling me about the history behind the beginning rollout of NGSS in Farmington and all the conversations they had had about developing a course sequence model and credit requirements for the secondary high school level. And that through additional comments that some questions had come up and they began to think about revising their original plan. And so I supported them in rethinking their thinking, which we want students to do, right? So we have an opportunity to do that. So a lot of high school teachers came together with actually other stakeholders like counselors to really think this plan. And so Colleen is here to kind of share that plan with you. And so we would like for the board to consider, while you did approve an original course sequence and credit, we think we might be in a revised place of something for you to consider. Colleen?
Okay, so I'm going to attempt to present my screen here. Let's see if I can do this. And while this is loading, I know I came to you last year with a course sequence and we had gotten some feedback on it. And so we created a new sequence. Can people see my screen?
Colleen,
yes, we can see it now.
You can see it now?
I can.
Okay.
It's coming up.
Yes.
Ooh, you're looking
so
at me.
There was some feedback that came from multiple places, from counselors, from teachers, from admin, with some concerns of the model I had brought to you. And there were even questions that you had asked when I brought it last year. So we went back and had a discussion at the beginning of the year, and we really honed in on 4 different criteria. We wanted it to be really clear what are our 4 criteria that we're looking for in a course sequence model. So the first one is flexibility and personalized learning. So do students have several pathways that they can take for science? Or is it one pathway that all students are taking, which is what our current model is for graduation? And then the second thing is honoring our new standards, really looking at our new Michigan science standards. What is the content in there? And what are they asking us to do, the practices that they're asking us to do with the students? The third one is looking at the state accountability and the M-STEP. The M-STEP, it was supposed to be this year, but I guess it will be next year. Starting next year, will be 1/3 biology, 1/3 physical science, which is chemistry and physics, and 1/3 earth and space science. So are we setting up a course sequence that will help students to be successful on that assessment too? And the last thing was reasonable scheduling options. How can we set up a sequence, one that is easy not easy, but in a way, it doesn't give too many preps or too many different classes for our teachers to teach. Also, it is easier for our counselors to navigate. So we wanted to make sure that we had that in there and for our parents to understand also. So after taking those 4 criteria into account, we came up, and I'm going to scroll down here to our new grad requirements. So these were the new graduation requirements. It's still 3 credits, and it will still start in 9th grade as a credit of either biology or honors biology. And then this is where students are going to have some flexibility. They'll have to take 2 credits in the core science classes. And our core science classes consist of physical science, which is a combination of physics and chemistry. And these classes are all 1 credit. Earth and space science, honors chemistry and the environment, and honors physics in the universe. So these courses, they would choose 2 of those. So what I have here is 2 pathways, but there are multiple pathways, but these are just 2 to give you an idea of what a student might choose to do. So they would start with biology, and this would start with our freshman class, the class coming in 2021, where their graduation year is 2025. So they would start with the biology or honors biology. And then a student could choose their sophomore year to take physical science, which this is an integrated course, physics and chemistry together. And then they could take earth and space science their junior year, which this is kind of a capstone course in that it's going to take into account the learning that students have done in biology, physics, and chemistry in the 2 previous years. and integrate that into earth and space science. Our earth and space science teachers are really excited about this course. They really are thinking about doing a project-based learning project or unit at the very end, where students get to choose a different earth concept that they care about and go and do some research and do kind of a science fair type feel, but in a project-based learning environment. So they're very excited about this course. Another option might be a student would take biology, then they would move over into honors chemistry and the environment. And that class integrates in some earth and space concepts. And it would be recommended for those who want a deeper dive in chemistry or are thinking about taking AP chemistry. Then their junior year, they could take honors physics in the universe. Again, this would be integrating some of those earth science concepts. So they may not take this earth and space class, but they are getting some of the standards and concepts in the honors chemistry and the honors physics. Or a third option might be a student takes biology, they take physical science, and they find out they really enjoy chemistry. So then they go take chemistry and take honors chemistry in the environment because they want to learn more about it. So that could be a third option. There are multiple pathways here, which really fits into that flexible learning. So that, and then that's the new proposal. We have a pathways document that is right now getting some feedback from counselors, teachers, and admin of what kind of pathways could my child go on. If they're interested in the health sciences, what do you recommend? If they're interested in computer science, what do you recommend? So that document is just getting feedback right now. There is also a document, a transition document. So although this goes into effect for the class of 2025, there will be some small impacts in scheduling on the class of 2022 and 2023, 2024. So I've worked on a document of what are those impacts so counselors, parents, and teachers can know when do I have to schedule certain classes as we phase out our old graduation requirements. What questions do people have?
Thank you. There we go. Okay, thanks. Now I have a full screen. I couldn't see. Is there any comments or questions from the board?
I have a question. So, thank you for presenting this. And I know that a tremendous amount of work was done to arrive at this. Can you help me understand better what's driving this change? Because I recall a year ago, there was a significant amount of work done in this area and some parent focus groups to come into, what we're moving from. And I thought there that we were creating flexibility and more options for kids by doing that half credit to, let them kind of dabble in each of these areas to kind of, get a better appreciation or understanding of what they might like. I'm not sure how kids can develop that appreciation outside of actually, experience in the class. So can you talk through what feedback occurred after we put this in place that led us to, revisit?
Sure. There was a lot of feedback, especially counselors were very concerned about not offering a year of chemistry. So we kept going back. That was really a big sticking point. Worried about college admissions, worried about scholarships, worried about engineering came out a lot. And so we had some feedback on that. There was also the feedback on a year of Earth. Some people were concerned about that. So we went back to the team and we thought about the year of chemistry. We were concerned that making everybody take a year of chemistry would not fit all of our students, because now we currently know a number of our students struggle with the year of chemistry, and they don't necessarily need a full year of chemistry because they aren't necessarily interested in going into the sciences. So that's where the physical science course came out of. But then we also wanted to have flexibility for those students who wanted to know more about chemistry, who possibly wanted to go into a science career, to have that option to have a year of chemistry. We had heard back from some universities that if people were going into engineering, not having a year of chemistry or having a year of physics might make the course load more difficult for those students. The admissions might not be affected, but the course load could be more difficult. So we wanted to have some flexibility in there. How do we meet the needs of our students who maybe are not interested in science, but we still have some great science classes for them, interested in pursuing science outside of high school, but we also want to have options available for those that are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the board? I just want to thank you, Mrs. Stam, for the pathway aspect of this plan. I think that's going to be extremely helpful to both our parents and our students as they charter and plan out their course of action throughout their college career, and ensuring that students have voice and choice in their future. So thank you, because I think that in and of itself is going to be extremely beneficial to our system. So thank you. Okay, I am going to jump back to our item 6 on our agenda, and that's reports from board committees. And the first one, Academic Excellence, Strategic Planning, Communications Committees. Mrs. Cummings.
Yes, so the Academic Excellence Committee met virtually last week on the 14th. We had a preview for the continuity of learning plan update that we had this evening. We also had a science update. We just heard about that this evening. We had a very brief update about literacy coaching. And then we had a status update regarding the Assistant Superintendent for Innovation and Strategic Projects search. And that process, the search process is ongoing, and that is not complete yet. But as of last week, some candidates had been identified and were going through, or had been through the interview process, but there was a next step that was necessary. We also had a strategic plan update, a very brief update on bus repurposing question. And we discussed briefly the board candidate information night that was originally planned, but clearly with the changes we've experienced, that cannot be held in person. So it looks like options are being looked at, doing a virtual or a video, a pre-recorded format. And that is all.
Thank you. Our next committee report is from the Policy Board Governance Committee that met this evening. Mrs. Weems.
Ms. Weems, you're on mute.
Thank you. Yes, so the Policy Committee met earlier this evening. We discussed several matters. First was a consideration as to whether our Policy Committee needed to consider any updates to our existing policy in consideration of, the current pandemic. We concluded that based on review of our policy and based on the opinion of our legal counsel, that there are no updates required to our policy. We also took some time to stop and consider whether there were any emerging trends or issues that were coming up, including those related to this pandemic that might warrant a consideration as to whether we needed any new policies. And we were not able yet to identify any, but that's something that we'll continue to monitor. So that was the first thing we talked about, was whether we needed to adjust our current policies or create any new policies. We also talked about the ongoing work that the committee has been doing on board protocols. And given the environment and what's going on, we wanted to table that until perhaps our next organizational meeting. And that will be a good opportunity for us to talk through as a team together how we want to function, how we want to govern ourselves, how we want to interact with each other. However, there are a couple of those board protocols that relate to sort of procedures that likely need review earlier than our organizational meeting. And so for those, we'll put those forth sometime between now and the summer so that we can get more clarity on those procedural matters, like how meetings, as an example, and our policies around television and that sort of thing. Finally, we talked about policy in general. We, revisited our discussions around whether we're going to focus more on flexible or more prescriptive policies. So we talked about the service providers that are currently available to do this type of work and to help us with policies, thinking that the committee is leaning towards more detail in our policy to help it guide administration. Don't think that that's a decision, though, that we need to make right now. We think that there may be some other players in this field which might give us some more options. So we're going to revisit this discussion in the summer. With that, the committee does not have any other pending, pressing business for the rest of the school year. So the board, the policy committee is not going to meet again until the summer. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Wings. Thank you to your committee as well. We will return to item 7, discussion items. The next topic is the middle year's MYP recommendation, and I believe that is Dr. Johnson.
Hi there, good evening. So as you saw in your board packets, we submitted a recommendation to you to consider with regard to the middle years program for that was slated to be at East Middle School. We gave some background in the past about how we began the implementation of the middle years program at East Middle School, which has been so far having our staff members trained in middle years program, to have our administrators trained. They've been preparing the environment at East Middle School, talking to the students and parents about what implementing the middle years program would look like at East. So after further review and further consideration and fully understanding what it would take to implement the program with full fidelity, to make sure that we have all the components that IB actually asks school districts to have, we determined that it would cost a certain amount of dollars in order to be able to do that. And we felt like we could not move forward without presenting that to the board for further consideration as to the direction that you would like us to go. Therefore, we presented the recommendation that because of the expenditures that it would cost to fully implement the program, that we would not move forward in that direction.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Are there any comments or questions from the board members? Mr. Mukamal.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. How much would it cost additionally to do the IB program at East?
We're talking about adding about 4 to 5 staff members, which would approximately cost around $600,000. That's just in staffing costs, along with the yearly fees that it would cost that we would have to pay to the IB program, which can, the yearly fee, and I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but we calculated that it would have cost roughly about another $650,000 to $700,000 just to fully implement the program. That's with textbooks, that's with other training that we might have to do. That's with the fees that we'd have to pay to IB, things of that nature.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Wings?
Yes. So thank you for presenting, and I appreciate that. These are costs that certainly need to be evaluated and weighed into the decision-making process. I am disappointed, however, because I feel like part of our expressed support and consideration for the primary years program was, thinking through how this would sort of flow for those students, right? And so I think students who are currently in the primary years program and families felt like there was an expectation that their kids' needs were going to continue to be met, you know, at the middle school level and through to high school. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, you know, do we have an alternative plan there? And I appreciate that, you know, maybe we're not going to fully move into the middle years program right now without, you know, better having a more comprehensive vision for the district. That might make sense. But what I'm not yet understanding is what the pathway is for current students.
So the students who are currently in the primary years program, of course, there would be the natural flow to continue to go through to the middle years and to the DP program, although not required to be able to be successful in the DP program, which is the ultimate, which would be, I would assume, if you were to pick that particular pathway, would be the ultimate goal would be to be able to achieve the diploma through the diploma program. And so as we were talking about what some alternative sort of instructional models might look like at the middle school level, I think those would be those would probably answer some of the questions that some of our parents want with regard to rigor, with regard to digging deeper into content, which the teachers at East have already had the training to be able to do that, which something like higher levels of tech integration at middle school would lend nicely into. And so I don't think our parents would be disappointed in the fact that their children would still be exposed to a higher level of rigor at points where they believe that they would want it or need that.
Thank you. Mrs. Cummings?
You're on mute too, Mrs. Cummings.
See, now I did it. Thanks. So, okay, now I think I have two questions. So my question, Dr. Johnson, based on what you were just describing, do I hear you saying that with the presentation we just had about the tech integration into the middle schools, bless you, that tech integration and the vision that is being put into place to move in that direction, that might be a good fit with the families that are looking for the more rigor and that have been through the elementary level, the PYP program. Is that what I hear you saying or not? I'm not sure.
Yes, I guess what I'm saying that is we're not necessarily leaving a hole there, so that kids that would participate in the primary years program at Wood Creek, and those students are naturally matriculating to Warner Middle School. But what we're saying is that the students would have continued an opportunity to participate in rigorous activities such as tech integration, such as being able to participate in project-based learning activities. Some of the things that we hear from our parents that they would like us to continue across the district that we could possibly replicate from STEAM, we would be able to do that at the other middle schools. What I'm saying is that the teachers who are at East, who had the training in MYP, could use those skills that they learned, which really talks about how you dig deeper into a content, how you would address a particular real life problem across several subject areas at once. And so the teachers have had that training. And so Dr. Herrera and I met with the staff at East yesterday via Google Hangouts Meet. And presented them with the opportunity to start thinking about what that educational environment looks like for their school. So we don't necessarily think that the students at Wood Creek who are going through the primary years program would miss out. They would just have other opportunities that would continue to prepare them for programs like the diploma program.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, Ms. Cummings and Mrs. Williams, those are very good questions. And again, as you know, one of the things, I guess, bringing it back to the bigger picture conversation we've had regarding the future of the district and the direction we'd like to head is, we know for several years, you know, that there was a lot of intention around creating individual schools' own identity. Some went to Leader in Me, some went to IB, some went to, then you created STEAM. The reality of that, creating your own identity concept led us to somewhat of a fragmented school district in terms of trying to put well-established pathways for kids and give everybody equal access. So when you have such a broad sense of offerings, what is the district's identity, and how do you put together a continuous pathway for learning or a continuum of services? It becomes very challenging because you have so many variables to work with. There's so many different programs to work with. So one of the things that we have to be intentional about is trying to determine what are these best practices that we would like to expand on, and what are some of the future practices we'd like to bring into the district, such as with the Bosch grant and the middle school innovation. So what I would ask on this and would begin to communicate to parents, and this is something we actually, for me, it was somewhat of a very pleasant conversation with the East staff, and because we're talking about next steps, is what are really the best practices in the MYP program that we really value and would like to make part of our foundations. Middle school or the MYP program and IB program have that learner profile. We've been talking about developing the profile of a lifelong graduate for all of our students as part of our strategic plan. We talk about integration among disciplines. So when you see that in the middle school innovation program, we're now working, Colleen mentioned, she's working with math, science, and language arts teachers on how to integrate and create projects. We talk about student voice and choice. We also will begin to talk about how we're personalizing the learning experience for all of our students, not just sending them through a customized program, but how we can actually then personalize that learning for each one of them in that program. So none of these conflict, and I think we just need to give it a little bit of time to begin to grow this, because remember, if we work collaboratively to develop this vision, it's going to take a little time, and it's going to take some coordinated effort, and it's going to take a lot of intention. We have kind of been distracted over the last couple of weeks with the new school closure from our strategic vision, which is what we talked about at our committee meeting as well. But one of the things we did offer, and this is where I was very proud to quickly be part of the East staff and begin to work with them, is we did say that we were going to offer them an opportunity to immediately begin to identify some of those foundational practices that they learned that they would like to begin to implement and build on, and then take them through a design thinking process with some supports to figure out what next steps are. And we told them we didn't want to overburden them with this learning plan, but we wanted to make sure that when they were ready to make that decision about next steps, we were going to be there and assure them that we were going to commit to their growth and commit to those next steps so that we can actually create that vision for those students at East. I'm overly confident on this, maybe I shouldn't be, that will be influenced heavily by the MYP because they've engaged in so much training. So I think that, if that's what our parents were looking like, it might not have the MYP name, but it'll have a lot of the aspects of MYP. And in addition to that, we will grow to also help personalize the learning for each student within that customized program. So I think, at least my opinion of my conversations with the staff and some of the excitement you've seen even with Colleen and Margaret already with some of bringing these more innovative offerings to our staff. There just seems to be a lot of will and enthusiasm around that right now. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what our staff can turn this into and how we can really communicate out to parents that we believe this is the next best thing to MYP, and it's Farmington's version of what's in the best interest of our kids in our school and our overall community. And then we can grow that within the district so that we do have a continuum of services and an identity, and we're all contributing to producing the same skills and attributes in our students. And I know that was a little long-winded and probably a bit of my soapbox speech, but I'm hopeful that you can see that I'm very hopeful that we are moving in the right direction, even though we did have to make a very difficult decision right now.
And
Thank you.
can I follow up on that?
Sure.
I just want to say thank you, Dr. Herrera and Dr. Johnson, for articulating that, because I think there's some just, I don't want to say misunderstanding. I just don't know that all the facts were out in the community. And I want the community to understand that it's not that we don't want programs or don't want to support families and students, but we're actually we have in front of us a great opportunity to move forward with all of our middle school programs. And when I look, and my other question for Dr. Johnson was the funds that were necessary. It appears to me to be around $1 million to implement the middle years program in the middle school. So if we take that $1 million, that would be at one school, and we can really use that to support and grow this middle school innovation throughout the district.
No, I would agree that $700,000-800,000 that would have been going towards the middle school. Now the numbers, Dr. Johnson gave you the minimal numbers. I believe it was 7 staff members to actually get it up and running as MYP would hope you could. Principal Sanders thought that he could still make it compliant with 5, but teachers would be teaching out of certification, and they would have some unusual schedules to get by at that level. So, we were really looking at a little bit higher cost than what Dr. Johnson originally stated. But yes, if you think about that, at $800,000 that would have gone solely to East for the MYP program can now be combined with Bosch or some other funding source. We could spread that among all 3 middle schools, in the same fashion, to begin to grow all of our innovation throughout the district and begin to impact more of our students and create more accessibility to those types of learning environments within the district. So yeah, I would agree in terms of the allocation of the resource. And again, this isn't certainly any concerns that I would have with the MYP program itself or the decision that was made. It's just, based on the prior decision, and I don't know what happened over the course of those 2 years in terms of budget allocations and budget development and maintaining that financial commitment to that. But we unfortunately just couldn't find ourselves in a place to come up with that amount of money to support that program where we're at financially. And not that that's always the key decision, but in this case, it was going to be a significant factor due to the amount of money. If we were talking 100 to 125,000, that would have been something that they've been responded to differently. But that's a significant amount of money, and 5 to 7 staff positions are significant in the district, because we would have had to pull those staff positions somewhere else and reallocate them to East because we don't have additional revenues coming in. So it was going to be a challenging problem to fix, and it may have well created more inequity in the district, unfortunately.
Thank you. Mr. Rich?
So I have 2 questions, and one kind of leads into the other. The first is, I know we have the diploma program in the early years. Do we have currently the career-related program through the IB?
We do. We are at the point to start offering that for next year. That doesn't create the type of expenditure, though, that another program would take, because the careers program, they actually just take the classes that are currently being offered through the diploma program plus one more section.
So I guess my follow-up to that is, do the numbers presented, do they include the discount we get for the having all the programs, for having that continuum of IB programs?
So the discount that we would receive would be with regard to the fees that we pay for the IB, fees that we pay to the IB organization, not the actual staffing that it would cost to staff the program. So I believe we receive, and give me for not having this in front of me, but we receive some, like when we have the PYP, MYP, DP, and then careers program, it's like a percentage off the amount that you would pay those fees.
Okay. Yeah, I'd want to see what those numbers are. Just looking at what the district pays currently and what those savings would be should we have all the programs versus just 3 of them, so on and so forth. But I mean, those are my questions thus far with this initial recommendation. I know we're not taking action on it tonight, but I definitely want to look into this further.
Are there any other questions from boards or comments from board members? Seeing none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the IT IGA agreement with Oakland Schools. Dr. Rivera?
Yes, thank you. I was going to let Jennifer Kaminsky introduce our representatives from Oakland tonight.
Good evening. So this evening we have Oakland Schools, Paul Sporer, who's the Executive Director of Technology Services, and Ryan Velzy, Director of Technology Operations with us. They'll be presenting our current intergovernmental agreement for technology services and what the services and staffing will look like upon full implementation of the agreement. So I will turn it over to them to start the presentation.
All right, good evening. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening as well.
All right, and I have shared a presentation. Everybody good at seeing the presentation?
Yes.
All right, great. Well, welcome. So yeah, Paul and I are here tonight to talk about the IGA for technology services. And this will be an interesting discussion because we're really going to talk about 2 things tonight. We're going to talk about the current IGA, and we're going to talk about expanding the current IGA. And really these services that we're talking about all fall within the current IGA that you have with Oakland Schools. So with that, we'll talk about what an IGA covers in terms of IT services, and then what field services is. So as we go into the next slide, so IT field services is really a division inside of Oakland Schools Technology Services that really looks at meeting the needs of local school districts' technology services. This IT field services division was really created about 7.5, almost 8 years ago in May. Paul and I were one of the original members of this IT field services team. And we had a unique opportunity, years ago to look at, as technology was changing in school districts and the requirements were changing, the demands on local school districts' IT staffs really became through the years more complex. So there was many more demands put on IT shops in local school districts. Both Paul and I have worked in local school districts and in our careers. I've worked at 2 different ISDs. And so as we developed this program, we recognized that, trying to be a specialist in all the areas of technology is becoming incredibly difficult. Things like cybersecurity and network operations and service desk and all these different facets of technology. It really takes a broader a skill set of team members to put together a comprehensive program for technology. And so, we like to wear the hat, that all the IT services in Oakland County, when they were, truly just individualized departments, were doing an awesome job. They were doing the best job that they could. But when you bring, a team of, now our technology services team at Oakland Schools is approximately over 130 people, which we'll show you in a few minutes. And the depth of experts, we want to share with you how we believe we can enhance the IT services that you already are providing to your district. I know we heard a lot of comments tonight about the great level of service. Our desire in this is to actually enhance that with some additional opportunities and actually raise that level of service. That's our goal, and that's what you should hold us to as a district. So again, we started that IT services about just under 8 years ago. And so now we'll get into how it's like structured. So it's really about, of course, it's about the people, the boots on the ground, the people inside of Farmington that are going into those classrooms. They are that what make it successful. Of course, we have to look at strategy. We have to look at procurement, project implementation, and support. So when you look at those things, we've kind of divided up IT field services into on-site support. Those are those people. So those are the people that will be in Farmington, servicing those classrooms. The shared leadership, that's Paul and myself and our management team of 21 deep now. We have 21 people that kind of oversee the overall operations and technology services. So that consortium of people. Our shared service desk, which is run outside of Oakland Schools, and that really complements the on-site support. So while you have on-site support today, we bring in an enterprise level product that Atlassian Jira software that really manages the workflow. And so we have literally, I'd love to show all of you, if you had an opportunity to come out to Oakland Schools, our shared service desk. We have screens on the wall like a typical call center. We have metrics and standard operating procedures, so you can tell, we can tell how many tickets haven't been touched. What is the time between tickets were touched? Are there any tickets that have gone beyond normal expectations? So we have staff and we have metrics in place to make sure that we're delivering the services to our districts. As I talked about the complexity of technology, really the shared engineering, the shared back-end support that really, in your current IGA, you've taken advantage of many of the projects that were talked about today. Your data center expansion, the Google migration, the phone system project that you recently approved, a cybersecurity initiative where we audited all of your cybersecurity needs across the district about 2 years ago. All of these things fall under our shared engineering. And so far, Farmington has been able to really excel its overall IT back end by utilization of Oakland Schools IT field services. And then again, because we, at the core of this, we all educate children. We do it a little bit different way, but we try to bring best of breed solutions by these county back end standards. We really do believe, I know it says it on the screen, but instruction drives technology. We want to partner at the hip with instruction, and we want them to drive and push us where we need to go. Of course, we'll push them too, but really, if instruction says they need to do something, we need to be right there with them and figuring out how to do it. And I'll let Paul add in anything to this slide before I go to the next one.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. So one of the things that's very unique about the way we supply services, and having been, like Ryan said, both of us in this field a long time. I've actually worked as a director in Oakland County 32 years now in different districts, and with Oakland the last 9. This system brings expertise to any initiative that really we take a look at trying to implement. So the way that it always, and with local resources who by the way do exquisite work for the most part, you're really kind of a single person trying to be the expert of everything. And in this particular model, we have certified experts in all of the initiatives that we push forward. And as we, I'll use an example, as we migrated 8 of our districts to the new Cisco backbones that they built in, we certified an entire engineering staff in Cisco products to be specifically able to support that initiative. So we have the latitude with the quantity and the size of our organization to pretty much take on these initiatives and implement them in ways that we just never could as local tech directors. I mean, I couldn't, as a local tech director, I couldn't envision doing some of the things that this group can handle every day. And as Ryan said, we have now 21 people in shared leadership. Again, we have expertise across the line. Some of those people are experts in engineering and infrastructure. Some of that leadership is experts in instruction, curriculum and instruction. We have former integration specialists that are on our leadership team. We have former engineers that are on our leadership team. We have former district administrative level people that are on our leadership team. Outside business people that are on our shared leadership team. What it does is it really lends us to have the expertise we need and to put the right resources in the right work in order to help move the needle, as Ryan said, in these districts. So as we look at the people part of it, there is an on-site support staff that will always be there in the district and be working hand in hand with the teachers and administrative staff in the district, boots on the ground, as Ryan said. But then there's an entire organization of resource people behind that are lifting up and doing some of the heavy lifting in order to be able to keep that on-site support and those on-site people in the buildings and working at that level. So that, and again, with the shared service desk as well, the districts, every one of our districts has assigned shared service desk personnel along with the support people. So that is an actual technical expertise that understands and knows the individual district. So there would be a technician specifically on the service desk that has worked in Farmington, works with the staff in Farmington, and that would be the first level elevation past the service desk in order to help that part of it too.
And this model currently is, depending on if you count Oakland or not, because our tech campuses, 11 or 12 districts deep. Farmington, and their partial adoption is 13. So, 12 districts are complete implementation of this model, and we have not lost a district yet. We'll talk a little bit about some of the survey results we received. We believe that's a very efficient and effective program in Oakland County that we've really developed, because, of our size and scope in Oakland County. This model really has grown into nobody else in the state can replicate this model just because of our ability to have the resources, to have the people, to have, the opportunity to put this together. So when we envisioned this model from the beginning, we really took it and looked at it when we were kind of creating it years ago. We looked at it and said, okay, well, if we have 20 districts in Oakland County, 29 districts, Oakland schools, and just south of 200,000 students and, 22,000 staff and 400 buildings, what would it look like? And so we said there's obviously going to be tech directors, tech coordinators. There's going to be, what are the components inside of those areas would the model need to have? So we have implemented methodologies around project deployment, strategic planning, IT procurement, which we have some things to demonstrate about cost savings. Again, the service desk, application support. We have in-house experts on, Farmington is a current MyStar district. So we provide the application support for the MyStar and also our business office products. Server admin, network engineering. So these are all the kind of the things that went into coming up with the model that we're talking to you about, IT field services. So some of our philosophies, when we talk about county standards, We want to focus on best practice, best price. We want to centralize some things like the service desk because we have technologies of the service desk that you may not be using in Farmington today. Like, you can get online, you can submit a ticket, but recently in the last year we rolled out instant chat, so you can get on with a technician same time, you can chat. So again, some of that stuff lends it well to being central. Again, engineering projects come on board, we bring the engineers in, so the engineers don't need to be in Farmington every single day engineering something, just because the way IT moves today, it moves in waves. Districts pass bonds, just like you had a successful bond campaign. There's things on that roadmap that will require engineering, but they might be in a year from now, or they might be in 4 years from now. We bring those engineers in and engineer those solutions for Farmington when they're absolutely necessary and when you want to accomplish that as a district. So then, we have certain standards. So again, how we deploy the internet, how we deploy security, how we deploy Google, the Google suite that Farmington currently takes advantage of. These are some of the philosophy things that we really do focus on. So as Paul and I shared, really we wanted to illustrate our depth to our overall team. This org chart really is why we're sharing that tonight, is so we've got all the districts on the left-hand side, and I've got, Jennifer said, I'm the Director of Technology Operations. I've got 3 technology directors that oversee the districts that we have talked about. So you can see the districts underneath that. And then all the staff on the left side of the org chart under me are all on-site staff. All these staff report every day. They are part of the communities. They wear the, they would wear the Farmington, logos and T-shirts, and a lot of times, they're at the football games and in the buildings, at all hours of the day. These are on-site people that support our districts, and so underneath each district, you can see that there's technology coordinators. Those are the very important people. Those are the advocates for the district. So when we try to roll out a countywide standard, these are the people that says, these are my needs in Novi. These are my needs in Royal Oak. We meet weekly with them and we talk about what their needs are, and they're the advocate for that district, because we want to make sure that the individual needs of the individual districts and the individual identities of the district are still maintained. That is a core principle in our model, is to maintain the identity of the local school district. We don't want to push in and say, no, this is the way Oakland Schools does it. This is the way that we've all decided it's best practice, best way to move forward. So in the middle of the org chart, we've got our NOC team headed up by our enterprise network manager. These are the engineers and the back end people that you typically see in IT, as they're in the cubicles behind the walls. They make the magic happen. They're the ones that deliver all these services. And Farmington, about 2.5 years ago, you made a strategic move to not outsource, but give us the opportunity to provide data center services. So for the last 2.5 years, we've been doing all the backups, all the disaster recovery plans, all of the virtual server hosting, all the components that you would have in an on-site data center were moved to Oakland Schools. Beyond that, we've got our service desk supervisor, who, again, Paul and I talked about that centralized service desk. And then off to the right is our applications team, headed up by Joyce Sackley. And really, that team is really divided up into 3 areas. Again, I talked about the student and the business, but we also have, application development. Those are apps that we develop that really don't have, we couldn't find a commercial product for, or we need some additional tools built on to Google to implement. When we implemented Google in Farmington, for example, we implemented a lot of intellectual, things that we've come up with to move data from the student information system over to Google. So when a kid enters Farmington today, their Google account is created and provisioned all within the same day. All that methodology comes with being part of that knowledge base. So when Farmington was looking at, a year ago, looking at the Google, we spent a lot of time discussing with the team how we could make this all happen, by really a flip of a switch, because when we engineer it for one, then we can expand it to other districts. I'll let Paul take the savings one. I've talked for a couple minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. There are economies of scale that actually allow us allow a district to actually definitely see savings by using this plan. But to be honest with you, for us, this is really not specifically about saving money. The savings portion of this is almost a byproduct of efficiencies and being part of consortiums and groups. We just, like Ryan talked about earlier, with phone systems and things like that, we're able to bring districts that have like needs together. We can do, larger, more massive RFPs. We get the attention of some potential vendors with some of these things that otherwise we would not have had. And a district, in some cases, just by implementation of services or mechanisms that we're doing for Oakland schools, they become the beneficiary of that. An easy example to use is the fact that a couple of years ago, Oakland schools had brought in a new SIM product, which is a part of our cyber initiative, where they're monitoring traffic on our networks to see if there's any attacks or inconsistencies or recognizable nuances about network traffic that we should be concerned with. The districts that are part of our services, because just simply being part of our system, like Ryan said, brought in Farmington to our back end, you became the beneficiary of the services. That service, to use an example, one of the superintendents in another district asked us about that SIM service specifically. We gave them the information. He got a $50,000 quote annually from that company to try and do that same thing individually for his district, because it was not part of his district is on its own and not part of our model. So we don't necessarily, talk highly of those types of things that come with being part of these services, but they're real and they're there. And if we're implementing those things for us and for other districts, we're always taking a look at, could we expand it out? Would it make sense? Would it add efficiencies? Is there potential cost savings there? Could a district come into something and do, work easier and more efficiently? So those are some of the, some of the pieces of how we plan and do and move initiatives forward. So that's part of the strategic planning. How that can turn into larger, more driven, I guess, service contracts and implementations. Obviously, there's always benefits to large numbers. So if we're doing an RFP for 5,000 of something or 25,000 of something, obviously structured pricing and things like that change those kinds of initiatives. We, again, as it relates to like support and maintenance, one of the things that we do as part of our services, we constantly monitor and evaluate contracts, district contracts. We have yet to go into a district where we did not see the district where paying contracts, it's just being part of our services, they no longer needed those contracts and they no longer needed to have those engagements anymore. Some are extremely high, others are not. I go back to, we did an implementation in one of our districts. Within the first week of being in that district, I eliminated about $250,000 worth of unneeded support contracts. Sometimes it's not always that significant, obviously, but just things that districts understanding and become normal over the course of time and years. Those things we evaluate and look at as part of our strategic planning coming in. And also we do a lot of long-term visioning for the district. So we're building roadmaps and things of where the districts are heading and what types of things it will take to get them there. and what are the things that they no longer need by heading down those tracks, and those also add to those types of opportunities for the districts. All right, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Paul. So as Paul just mentioned, we talk about the roadmap. So in working with Farmington for the development of this expansion of the IGA, we developed the 3-year roadmap. And so, I have struck out some of the projects that we've already accomplished this year in the 1920 school year. Last summer, we did a major overhaul, worked with Presidio, your vendor, to complete the network upgrade. We did a major firewall replacement. That current firewall was not able to handle the traffic on the Farmington network, so we got that replaced. You recently approved the IP phone refresh that before COVID we had planned to roll out starting this month, but we will get back to that when we're able to be back in the buildings. So we're working on some one-to-one planning with Farmington, your boardroom, and some decisions about some technology in there. The reestablishment of the Ed Tech Committee, as your superintendent has been working on a strategic planning process. Technology is part of that process. And then we really would like to implement the service desk, which brings an enhanced level of service in terms of tracking through an enterprise product that gives us visibility and gives us, with each interaction of a service ticket, it gives the opportunity for a staff member to provide feedback. What was the, how was the experience? Is there anything we could do better? Did we get 5 stars? So we take a look at that as a management team, and we really have a goal of providing world-class customer service. We believe that there's nowhere else you can go to get this type of service other than from IT field services. And so, we invest in our staff. When I talk about world-class customer service, that's not just something I say. We literally had one of the best, professional developments that works with Disney and Delta Airlines, come in and work with our staff on how to, when you introduce yourself to the customer, what's that experience like? When you're halfway through the transaction, what do they remember? What do they remember about that interaction? We put all of our staff through trainings like this yearly to aim towards providing that world-class customer service. And we also see that, staff that come over, that come over to Oakland schools from local school districts typically see an advancement of their career. We've seen that a lot of times. We'll get onto that in more in a second. But and so in 2021, we really see some initiatives focusing on printing, further initiatives in the one-to-one, the data center. There's some structural things that could use some refresh in your data center, the pieces that are still there, finishing that strategic plan. Again, we're talking tonight about the really one major piece of this IGA that we're talking about is the staffing and the staffing model, which we'll get into in a second. So then, 21, 22, again, talking about that tech integration, continuing the one-to-one. With the recently passed bond, there is some capital bond work identified in that year, so we'll need to start planning that. Part of that capital bond was also a wireless network refresh. At that point, the wireless system will be beyond 5 years old, so we'll need to start looking at that. The video surveillance system will start to show its age. And by that time, as we heard tonight with the middle school program and some of Bob's leadership, we want to, be at the table supporting the learning environment improvements that come along with some of these strategic planning processes that you're focused on as a district. So with all that, we believe in bringing technology equity, next generation instruction, mixed environment of one-to-one, obviously cloud and hosted apps. As again, we'll say it again, instruction drives technology. So to kind of review what currently Farmington has in place today with our IGA to supplement the current staffing, we've, you have a tech director position that is currently unfilled, project coordinator, network engineer, computer techs, and computer support. So that's your kind of inventory of your current IT department. So And then we wanted to go into what do the costs look like for the current school year. So the current IGA with Oakland Schools, the Farmington tech staffing, what that chart that I just showed you cost the district, and then what the total was, and then that's really 11 FTE servicing the district right now. So we want to share with you our proposed plan. And so in the plan, we have a 0.5 tech director, a full-time senior coordinator, 2 senior techs, 1 tech support specialist, and then 5 tech assistants. So you can see that this is actually an increase in staffing. So now what does the cost look like? So our revised numbers that we worked with Farmington on are shown on the screen. And we do believe that in the initial staffing, we would be able to show a small savings of just shy of $100,000. And the FTE servicing Farmington would be 12. And as Paul and I both believe, because we've both been integrally involved in each one of these onboardings of the districts through the years, we believe that there'd be some additional savings once we get in and start looking at the current IT contracts that you have as a district. So it's important to point out, kind of what Oakland Schools provides, the depth of services. So I won't read all these to you, but these are the areas that each one of these areas, is a whole area of IT in itself. So these are all the things that we're responsible for, and we like to also point out on the next slide of, a lot of the fiscal responsibility for tech purchases, software purchases, all of that stuff still makes, still is a district responsibility. So we try to be, clear about what the model includes and what it doesn't include, and spell it out so districts and boards understand that. And with that, we can open it up to any questions that the board has. We're here to answer questions.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. But I have a couple of questions. The first question is, you mentioned that you have been working with our district for what, 2 years?
About 2.5 years, yep.
About how many?
2.5 years to just over 2 years. Yep.
Okay, so that apparently was under the leadership of the past administration, correct?
Yes, the current the former superintendent. Yes, we worked with Mr. Heisch.
Okay, so this contract and everything was done under past administration, and I'm pretty sure there were no board members that you've ever met. Am I correct?
The current IGA was a 5-year IGA that was signed by the former superintendent to cover full IT services with a scale up of IT services. To answer your question specifically, I have been monthly working with the Farmington, the central office folks for just over 2 years. But until the recent phone system proposal, I had not had an opportunity to meet you. You are correct.
Okay, so you have not met any board members and you had no interaction with the new superintendent until he was hired in, correct?
After the new superintendent was hired in, we did reach out and we formed a meeting to talk about IT services.
Okay, now another question, and I'm sorry for the, you hear my dog in the background. The other question that I have is, will you be looking at hiring members from our IT program now that work for the district?
Yeah, so that's a very sensitive topic for us. Here's a couple things that we do know. We do know that in order to be successful with this model, that we need quality people, and most of the time in all these models, all the 12 districts, I can talk about success stories of people that were former coordinators, former technicians, former resource people serving in the district that are some of the brightest and best that we have on our teams. So through this process that we've laid out, every single person of the Farmington Tech team is welcome to apply for these positions that I outlined before. I would, I know some of these people. I've worked with them. I've been in Oakland County for years. And we also know that there is not an unlimited number of staff to pull from that know education, that know our business, which is education. So I believe that there is an excellent chance that through the process that the majority or the people that are currently servicing Farmington may still be servicing Farmington. Sorry for that long-winded answer.
That's okay.
And can I add something to that if you'd allow me? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect, because I want to say something to my colleagues.
Okay. So one of the things that we do, we use a pretty rigorous process, interview and qualifications process. So we take a serious look at the people, and we are definitely always looking for the most qualified people in our industry. And I want to emphasize in our industry, because education is an industry within itself. And if we can utilize and get qualified people that also have educational experience, it obviously is an advantage. So one of the things Ryan said is there's been a lot of opportunities for personnel of districts that have applied for positions at Oakland over the course of time when we have done these engagements. And we do have a very large number of what were once local district staff, including myself, by the way, as Oakland staff now.
Okay, thank you. So President Green, here's where I'm going with this. I heard the public comments tonight, and I know that everybody is sensitive with this coronavirus and everything. But what I want to say is to the community, as well as to Ryan and Paul and those that are on this call. What I want everyone to know is this was not something that was done deliberately and behind closed doors and what I'm hearing a sneak attack. Dr. Herrera came on board and he had spoken to individual board members, and he let us know, being transparent, that this had been done by past administration. So here's where we stand in this community, is that we have a gangrene. So do we cut off part of the foot and leave the rest of it there, or do we just take the whole foot? I understand that we are in a situation where we are in a pandemic, where people cannot go out and apply for jobs. Was this something that people knew that was taking place? From my understanding, I'm hearing this happen a year, almost 2.5, 3 years ago. This was not shared with your present board as we speak now. And from what I'm hearing, the board that was on, that we still got 3 board members that were on board that knew nothing about this either. So this was nothing that this board did. This was done under last administration. This was not done under Dr. Herrera. This was not done under the leadership of this board. What we're trying to do, we have to do something. But what my concern, and would I love to see this happen? Yes and no. I would love to see it happen so that our board members could make sure that our staff that we have in place take this position to have jobs. As far as the work, I love your presentation, but like I tell everyone, I don't impress easy. I love the package. It's a Tiffany package. Inside, I'm afraid there's a $5 gift in there. I want a $5 wrapping with a Tiffany gift. And what that means to me is I don't want anyone in this district to lose a job because of the last administration doing something without talking to this board. So Dr. Herrera has reached out and he has spoken to us. This was not anything that he did behind our backs. This was not anything that he said, let's do, and we're going to pass this bond and do this with Oakland schools. So that's my comments, and that's been my time. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Mr. Rich next.
There we go. So my question is, looking at this as time frame, like what kind of time frame are we looking at with this shift? I know, especially being in the situation that we are right now, the last thing we want is people to be out of jobs, especially right now. What are we looking at as the time frame of the shifting over from the one staff model to the other?
Sure. So the current assumptions that we built in based upon the ask of the current administration was, when we came up with these proposals, was to shift, because you have to pick a moment in time. So a good transition time is around July 1st, just because financial budget years switch. That doesn't mean that that's the requirement of it, but we did have a lengthy discussion over the last 2 weeks about, we're certainly affected by COVID too. We're an organization now that's working 100% remote, and that has affected us. It's affected the school district. There was questions that surfaced. Should we delay it 6 months? Should we look at it? Again, we had serious conversations about, can we do this? Do we feel we can be successful doing it during COVID-19? And we feel that we're in a good position with accomplishing it. If something else comes at us, these are living, breathing documents. If something is thrown at us tomorrow, like a curveball, like COVID-19, we make adjustments. We work with the boards. We make sure that we can be successful. We're not going to go down a path that we can't be successful at. Sorry for that.
Yeah, that answers part of my question. I also want to comment that, what we've seen is, we have people who are here in our district on the ground, and definitely want to see, if possible, that they're the ones that we see here as people on the ground going forward.
Yeah, there's a human side of this. This is always a difficult, piece of this, from both sides, is that you want to make sure that you're delivering a quality IT. And not that I'm suggesting that we're not delivering or you're not delivering today, but, we want to continue to propel the district forward. Sometimes, we just want to validate. This gives us an opportunity to go through a rigorous interview process, to interview the staff. And, these decisions are not made by us. They're made together with the district. So as we've talked to Bob and Jennifer about the onboarding of staff, this isn't something that we go off and do in isolation. This is the decisions that we made with the district central office staff on who, ultimately, yes, we have the final say, but you can, as board members, you can talk to any one of our districts in terms of, it's a partnership. Partnerships require, give and take. If the central office administration requires, something or suggests something, we try by all means to meet that requirement. So it's a process. It causes some anxiety, but we need to validate. I feel strongly about, we need to validate that we're putting the right team in place to take Farmington where they want to go with their strategic plans and where they want to go in 2020 and beyond.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'll be very brief. This is just more of a comment than anything. I just want to make sure people understand we've entered into a contract that was not approved by the board. This board, to the best of my knowledge, no person on this board had any knowledge that this contract existed. And again, this was done prior to Dr. Herrera coming. And we're kind of, right, wrong, or indifferent, we're kind of in the middle of a contract. So therefore, we're going to have to work with the folks at Oakland ISD and do the best we can. And I'm looking forward to that relationship because, again, we are in the middle of a contract. We just can't up and say, hey, we don't want to do this. You know, just want to make sure everybody understands that. And I'm hoping that the folks at Oakland ISD will do what needs to be done to bring on folks that know our district well and can work together with those folks also. So, you know, we as a community need to keep that in mind. I think Ms. Green, you had about 55 minutes of comments, with the majority of them involving this issue. And, you know, again, this board had no say, no knowledge, and we're in this contract. And again, we've got a superintendent now that's extremely transparent. You know, we know what's going on in the district and there are no surprises. So I just wanted to make that comment and say thank you.
Yeah, and one more comment, if I could just, add, is that, I believe that the current administration, current superintendent believes in this plan. We have, we're in a contract, but we can do amendments to contracts. We can change things around in the contracts. But we, together with this administration and being transparent with the board, looked at the current contract and said, does it still make sense? Does it make sense to continue with the contract? Are we trying to accomplish everything that Farmington needs to accomplish in this contract? And the answer was yes to all that. So that's why we're here talking to you about it tonight, because we at Oakland Schools, anytime we're asked by a superintendent or to present, we're always available to answer any questions and be transparent with the community.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Muckamel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would it be possible to put the presentation back on the screen for a moment?
Sure, yep.
And specifically, I'm interested in the page that says Proposed OS Technology IGA Staffing.
This one?
Yep, that's the one. Now, the page following that shows an FTE of 12. Correct?
Yeah, so that was that is some of the details in the services that we talked about, network engineering and service desk. The 12 is actually, so the proposed OS technology staffing, our focus on that was to try to show you the staff that will be on site in Farmington reporting, outside of staff meetings and professional developments, but there to report to Farmington and to serve Farmington for the most part every single day, life and death in Farmington. So when I move to slide number 12, when I say 12 or when we say 12, there's additional resources like a full-time technology assistant at the service desk that is devoted to Farmington. So that's why that number is more than the on-site staff that are on-site in Farmington every day.
But when I go back and I look, could you go back then to the slide prior to that?
Mm-hmm.
So, and prior to that one, I believe, yes. So are these are the total number of people that are currently in Farmington right now?
Correct.
And that number is?
I think it's 11.
11. So I can't compare. So it's really going from 11 to 9.5. Is that correct?
So can I clarify one thing with the Farmington staffing? So
yes,
the technology director, that's an unfilled position right now.
Okay.
And this was also the staffing we would absolutely need if we didn't move forward with full implementation. So we need our own network engineer, which is also a position we don't currently have. That's covered as part of that smaller IGA agreement with Oakland Schools, where Ryan is talking about the network services. So those two positions aren't currently filled positions within Farmington. But if we, managed everything in-house, we would definitely need those two positions.
Okay.
So, just to try and provide clarification since
that's very helpful. So if I were to look at the number of people that right now are in Farmington Public School District that are providing, on the ground support, how many people is that?
That would be 9 individuals.
And under the contract, what would that number be?
We would have 9.5 on site with an additional 2.5.
So you would have 9.5 on site here daily, and but that's also supplemented with more resources that do come into the district. They're just not assigned on a daily basis.
Right.
So as an example, who will come in, work with the internal staff to implement the project, and then that maybe 1 or 2 resources will move back out into other field work.
Understood. So now let's say, so you have heard tonight almost an hour of public comment, many of them from staff members who have had to adjust their entire manner of teaching in very, very short period of time, and who have been very heavily reliant on the support that they get from the people that are currently in place. So, and some of these comments indicated to me that they responded within minutes. Is that the kind of level of support that you are proposing to give?
Yeah, Ryan, I'll take this one. So to use that very example, not only in this particular environment, not only are all of those resources that are normally assigned to the district on staff available, we also have 18 more staff members sitting on a service desk that are fielding calls and taking and doing remote connections to local desktops and workstations of staff, doing live chats online with them as well. So technically, in this remote world environment, the resources far exceed the just 9.5 that you see there that are available.
So if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that if, let's say I'm a teacher, all right, and I'm trying to understand technology and I have a problem. So I can contact one of the direct people that services the district, right, in person. I can call the help desk, or I can chat.
So there's a number of ways you can do it. You can we initiate everything through the what we'll call level 1 service. So it's the initial contact would be through a number of different mechanisms to initiate contract. You could do it via email. You could do it via phone call. You could do it via live chat. There's a number of different initiations. If that service, that initial contact, is not resolved while they are in contact, initial contact, it elevates to either an on-site resource that will then receive either a text message or a communication through the system with a Jira app on their phone that says, hey, this teacher needs service, I need you to swing by there. Or it'll elevate to, we talked a little bit about having a technician that understands and knows the district assigned to the service desk. It'll elevate to that higher level senior type tech person that can take over remotely and see if they can handle that work without having to deploy a technician specifically to that workstation in order to get that resolved. What we're trying to do is we're trying to maximize the resources, all of the resources that make up supporting, right? So if we can handle something with a advanced technician on the service desk via remote, then that on-site technician can be hands-on with the teacher in another, in another classroom that actually requires somebody to touch the machine to do it. So it's just a way of leveraging and maximizing the resources all the way across the board. I hope that answers the question.
Yes. I hope, Madam Chair, you'll indulge me with it if I can ask a few more questions.
Yes, Mr. Muckamoe, can you hold 1 minute? We're going to let Dr. Herrera make a comment, and then I'll come back to you.
Yep, I was actually going to suggest that, so by all means.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I was going to hold off with the comment until the end of the board meeting, but I think since we're kind of involved in this part of the conversation right now, I did just want to offer some of the fact finding that I've been able to complete over the last week and a half as we move forward with this. So there seems to be some unknowns around how we entered into this agreement. So I thought should at least give the board that knowledge of what occurred. So to the best of my ability in terms of the fact finding, it appears that somewhere between the passage of the 2015 bond and 2017, the board engaged with Plant Moran to do an audit of the tech department. When that occurred, one of the recommendations from the finding was that there seemed to be, Plant Moran identified some systemic needs and some capacity issues, not alone with the infrastructure, but in their whole analysis, and had made a recommendation to the central office staff, the superintendent, that they may want to consider engaging in a conversation with Oakland ISD for their service model for IT. And it was also right around 2017 that the district ran into its first real challenge with the data center, that it was at its end of life. And that was about my understanding is that was right around a $650,000 cost to the district. So in continued conversations with Oakland ISD at the time with that model, and I believe Ryan was involved in this conversation, Oakland offered a proposal for data services for $190,000, which would have been a significant savings to the district. I believe that was the first step in engaging this 5-year agreement. The other pieces of the fact finding, so in December of 2017, the district signed the contract for this 5-year service model with Oakland ISD. The other piece of that is that came up in public comment, and I've been questioned on a little bit, was within this agreement, was it an a la carte agreement? In other words, was it the full scaling up and full service? Was that the original intent? Or were we going to just a la carte certain services from the ISD and not make a full commitment as a district? Based on comments from our central office cabinet and the fact finding with Oakland ISD staff, the intention was always for a full service. And so that's when, I became engaged in this, and I mentioned to the board, that's when I figured I'd become transparent with the board on this one.
Yep.
And I think Jennifer and Ryan brought this to my attention sometime late October, early November. We started going down this pathway, and I think it was partly due to the phone systems, honestly. So that's when I began to bring it to the board. Out of respect for the board, to make sure the community understands the board's involvement of this, and I truly respect the board and their willingness to support transparency and actually, take on these difficult decisions. This has been through committees twice, or actually 3 committees, Finance Facility twice, and HR once. We've also received updates at board retreats as well for this. I would also like to mention that communication went out the other direction as well. I had several conversations with Tiffany Guth about this. As a matter of fact, not to question you, Ryan and Paul, but when I found out that we had a service agreement that we were going to have to completely fill, I panicked a little bit because I didn't know about Oakland ISD's service model. So I actually brought in an independent consultant to work with Tiffany and do an informal audit of our IT department and actually interview Ryan and take a look at the service contract from the ISD so I could get a comparison and an unbiased opinion of what we were getting into or what I would need to address to further engage in that contract through any amendments. So I did hire a consultant. The findings from all the consultant on that was they kind of match or very parallel with the comments from Ryan and Paul tonight in terms of the service model, that it certainly would increase our overall capacity in the district, we would have a lot more efficiencies in the districts with the service model. And there were also, he noted that there were some unforeseen or cost savings along this, possibly because of these efficiencies, reductions of the expenditures within the district in IT. And also, you know, as Ryan even mentioned out, we pay for consulting services through IDS, which you weren't very happy with, and Plant Moran. I think Plant Moran services right now are over $600,000. And I believe they would at least cut those shared services by, 35%, which would be a significant savings for the district. So, that's kind of the fact finding I've been through. I've tried to weigh out where we're currently at with our structure and our challenges and our strengths and weaknesses. I've had somebody take a very close look at the service model, and he's had conversations with Oakland ISD staff as well. And the end of that, that's where I brought it more towards the board's attention and Tiffany's attention that, there's the recommendation from the consultant, this agreement, and our current situation seemed to be the best answer was to continue to move forward with this agreement. The other thing that I think the board would have to consider on this, which we haven't discussed and I haven't fully explored, is if we were going to abandon or consider an early termination or termination for convenience of the Oakland ISD contract, what would that deboarding cost and process actually look like for us? We don't have the technical capacity to even figure that out. We don't have a director of technology in-house. And so, that would be a major undertaking to even figure out what those costs would look like. We'd be bringing in additional consultants to figure out what that deboarding process would look like and what it would mean for cost. So, when you take a look at this from a big picture, I believe that George's decision and John's decision in the past were probably a good decision for the district. And in this case, I think we should honor that decision and continue to move forward with this agreement. If I could find a compelling reason in this to create a bigger amendment or to consider early termination, I would have recommended that to the board as well. But in this case, considering all the facts and all the fact finding I've done, this does seem the best course of action to take for the district. And Terry and Mr. Johnson's correct. I mean, we do have a couple years left in that original agreement. And what I would say is the Oakland ISD has been a very good partner in good faith services, waiting for the district to complete this agreement. They've been patient on. They've created staffing positions on their end that they've been funding that we haven't been purchasing, that I'm sure they would like us to move forward with. And they've been very helpful with us, still providing services that Ryan and Paul had mentioned to you. So, based on all my interactions with them, they've been a very good partner. And last but not least, I would say that I've had, my hope would be that many of our faces, or if not all of the faces of our staff, would return to these positions and they would still continue to serve Farmington and our teachers and students. But I have worked for an ISD myself, and I don't believe that my commitment and support to local districts was any less than if I were employed by them. I think it depends on who you hire, the processes you hire, and if you're hiring quality people, they're going to go in and they're going to be professional about doing their job and providing the service to you. So I'm not as concerned about that. Plus the fact that they're not our employee, if they're not living up to our expectations, I'm sure that's something that we can work on too. But nonetheless, I just wanted to share some of my fact finding because, over the last, 4 or 5 months on this, I truly have given this a lot of thoughtful consideration, and I've done due diligence on behalf of the board and our staff to make sure that this was a direction we should continue to proceed. And I didn't find any reason not to honor the agreement. So that's, I guess I felt that I should probably interject that information in my position on that right now. Well, thank you, President Green, for allowing me to step in here.
You're welcome. Thank you. Malcolm?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Harara. I was going to, my next comment was going to ask if you could comment on that. Gentlemen, my final question, so I don't want to overly dominate the discussion here. Could you talk about the quality control that you have in place for dealing with the staff that is on site and the service desk?
Yeah, so again, everything is driven by our service service processes driven through the service desk ticketing system. So we have escalations in those tickets. So and they're based upon priority. So priority, building down, district down, that initiates an SOS. So literally, we have SOSs. So if a building, let's say in Farmington, there's a fiber cut and the district goes offline, we have an SOS, and that SOS means that that's worked on and it's touched every 15 minutes until that is resolved. We have many communication practices in place that even today in place with a severity 1, building down, district down, we use WhatsApp app. And so that is a communication channel that allows us as the 21 members of technology services to get keep abreast of that situation. So, our fiber doesn't go down that often, but when it does, or there's a crisis, that's a high priority and that gets touched every 15 minutes until it's resolved. Then we go into a little bit less priority, and that those get escalation. So like if a teacher puts in a ticket in a classroom and let's say a projector is out, that gets touched every 2 hours until it's resolved. And if like it goes to a technician, well, first of all, it may come into the service desk. And so, our job or our goal is to not let any ticket untouched. Sometimes during back to school, it may go up to 15 minutes during a high surge of tickets, but we work that ticket to continually get that number, get that ticket identified, get it triaged, get it out to the field to get it worked on. And then so if during that process something goes, let's say somebody didn't put their out of office on, or somebody is sick and it didn't get routed properly, that gets escalated to that coordinator, who then has to start working that ticket. So, and then if the coordinator doesn't acknowledge it, then it comes to the director. And we have all these hierarchy of channels built in all the way up to our CIO, Tammy Evans, will receive a ticket escalation, based upon a projector going out in a classroom if it's not responded. Our goal is to never have to have the CIO reach those tickets.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mrs. Weems?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. So first, I know that Oakland Schools oversees many districts, and that the technology also serves many districts. Because of that, I'm concerned that maybe there are some specs or settings with respect to shared technologies that we may want to change, customize to be specific to our needs that maybe can't be changed because it will impact the entire district. So maybe, configurations in Google or that sort of thing. Have you given that some thought, and has that been an issue for other districts?
Sure. So that's a discussion, that is on our core principles. Really is to keep that identity of the district and the identification of the district's needs at the forefront of everything that we do. So, has there been conversations through the years as we've grown, even with our first district, as we try to implement best practice? Maybe does best practice rub with what a district wants to do, and does it open up a security hole if we do something that a district wants to do? So these conversations do happen, and sometimes it takes it's a give and a take. So sometimes, but I think we always deliver a solution that is amenable. Yeah, sometimes it may be a different way of doing something, but we really, as a team, and as my expectations on my directors, on my team, is we try to meet all the needs of the district. And if that means implementing a new tool, if that means implementing in a different way, I don't necessarily divide it as a workaround, but we find a solution to it. It may not look exactly, but it's not really because of being part of a larger system. It may be because of a security concern, or that we have data flowing in from a student information system, and you want to just have the teachers create the record, individually, but because of time efficiencies, we chose to do it automated. And Paul, if you want to add in anything, please do.
Yeah. So I do think that we pay extra close attention to trying to make sure that the district's individuality and personality is always maintained in what we do. But Ryan is correct. I mean, especially as it relates to either efficiencies that will actually make the teacher's job easier or potentially more secure. If we see a tremendous vulnerability, then we will want to talk about those implementations. And I sit here and I was trying to think if I could think of a situation where we just couldn't do it. And Ryan, I couldn't think of one in any of our districts where the solution was just we can't do that, or we're going to have to shut it down, or you're not going to be able to implement that. The unique part about the services is that we can get an entire, R&D group in the background playing with things and working with things to try and figure out how to make, a unique nuance of the district function within some of the efficiencies that are built into the system. So
to talk to that level of, how well we're connected, Paul and I and our 21 management team and the coordinator that would be assigned to Farmington, we get on a 7:45 call every single day, Monday through Friday, every single work day, and we discuss what everyone's working on. So we have visibility as leadership into the districts that we service and the teams that we have deployed every single day as a touch point. And we set that up a number of years ago, and it's great because things like challenges that may be going on in Farmington surface up to my level and Paul's level almost daily. And so that gives us visibility into figuring out if there is something that, we need to resolve or look at a different way. There's also in the IGA, there's escalations. And so, I have been doing this with Paul for, close to 8-9 years. Maybe it is 8 or 9 now. I said 7.5 before, but I didn't have the calculator out. We haven't had a formal complaint that had to come through the IGA, from a district through an IGA. We would welcome a district if they're really struggling with something that we can't do. There are formal escalations in there that can certainly be executed, and we would take them seriously. But so far, we've been able to work out solutions and not have to use any of those escalations. Sorry for those additional details.
That's helpful. The next question I have is just around options here. So I'm a fan actually of shared services where it makes sense. We currently have a contract with the Oakland schools, and we're currently paying for services, but we're not currently paying for what was proposed today. So what I want to understand is, given the fact that we've got some great people on the ground right now, and those folks are operating and delivering with a reduced team. Like we're supposed to have 9 FTEs and we're actually operating with 7 right now. So if we continued on, and I wouldn't suggest that we do this, but if we continued on with the holes that we currently have, we'd actually be saving money. But given that that this difference isn't significant, what I want to understand is what specifically are we looking to get through this arrangement? And this is probably more a question for the district, beyond what we're already paying for and beyond what we think we can get from our staff. And have you considered somehow, combining where we currently have holes, filling it with, services that Oakland School provides?
Sure. So can I answer the Oakland Schools question first? I think you'd like that detail.
Sure.
I would say, this adoption or the implementation of this agreement is pretty unique because we don't really offer this in an a la carte methodology. We offer this to Farmington and structured it in a way that was really a ramping up or ramping on board. And so there's different components of the way you on-ramp a district. And the first step that you talk about is staffing, and then you implement some of the practices, and then you implement back-end services. Well, in this case, as Bob mentioned a couple minutes ago, the district really had a crisis with end-of-life a storage area network that was at capacity, and you couldn't store any more data, and you couldn't expand actually your services in your to service your districts. And I wasn't involved before that crisis really happened, but it was a looming challenge that needed to be addressed. So we have implemented in good faith a lot of standard practices and procedures into the district, as far as the district even wanted to go and implement Google. Well, Google, we have to implement all kinds of, data ties between the student information. So all these systems we've already implemented. So if without the staffing, so really the staffing is like the last piece of this. We've kind of done it totally backwards is what I'm trying to describe, which is fine, which was fine with us because we knew that Farmington, could benefit from the services. We knew that Farmington was a great partner. So we, continued to try to pick off every piece of this to make Farmington the best implementation possible through these discussions that we've had with now, 2 central office administrations.
Thank you. Mrs. Weems, anything else?
No, I'm still thinking through that.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Cummings?
Well, thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Dr. Herrera, for an explanation of the information that you've put together through your fact finding. That's very helpful. And I know we have, as was stated previously, we've had a lot of public comments about this agenda item. And so I would encourage people to go back and review Dr. Herrera's information that he shared just maybe that was 10 minutes ago. Because that's a lot to take in, I think, and a lot to process. But there is a contract. I think we've established that. It was entered into, about 2.5 years ago. And I just, for the record, personally, that may have been well within, and I would assume it was well within the superintendent's authority to do that. So I just want to put that out there. I think that was within his authority. And I think as Ryan mentioned, we were at the end of life with certain services or equipment, and we had to do something about that. So, and I do recall, that was quite a while ago, so I don't remember specifics, but I believe I do recall receiving some information on this. So I don't feel like this was a surprise. Now, do I know all the details of the contract? No. I've learned a lot about it over the last day or so, and especially over the last 45 minutes or so. So thank you for sharing the information, Dr. Herrera. Thank you for your fact finding and doing your due diligence to really put this together and make a recommendation that you believe will move the district in the direction that we want to go. Because this isn't just a decision in a vacuum. This is a decision that impacts, my guess is all areas of the district. And as we look at our strategic planning, and as we look at the profile of our graduate, the profile of our learners, and how are we going to grow and change and support our learners, this is a really important topic. This is important, and we need to think about the future as we move forward. And it's not an easy conversation when we're talking about our employees. This is very challenging. So this is not something I take lightly. So many of my questions, of course, because I think I'm going last or maybe second to last, I'm not sure here, but many of them have been answered. So I don't really have a question at this point that hasn't been answered. But as Ms. Weems said, it's a lot to take in and a lot to think about. So I appreciate all the information this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of follow-up things. One, I do want to say that as the public comments alluded to, one of the questions is why now? Why are we doing this now? I want to make it clear that when Dr. Herrera was informed about the contract, did the investigation, he did take it through our board committees. He did share the information with us. We knew that we would have a timeline that was created before the pandemic occurred. It's unfortunate in the timing of both at the same time. We knew that in order to be prepared to be able to enter into this contract and do what we should be doing, July 1st is when we start our new school year, technically, when it relates to technology. So in order to do that, we knew that we would be looking at a May-June conversation, and that would then start the process of looking at staffing and interviewing and all of that component. So I want to make sure that we're clear that this wasn't something that arbitrarily came up with. Now we're coming to May, our staff is stressed, and we're adding this layer to it. I know it feels that way, but that was never the intent nor the plan. So I just want to clearly make sure people understand that we also understand this isn't coming out at a perfect time, but we must be prepared as we look forward for our students. With that, Dr. Herrera was also very forward with the board in the sense of, as we look at our strategic plan, our learner profile, as Mrs. Cummings talked about, it's innovation, forward thinking, technology, access to all of our students, and how do we bring that forward? So there's been a lot of consideration, as Dr. Herrera talked about, the audit. It is uncomfortable when we're talking about people we value, we have commitments to. I'm pleased to know that there's opportunities for them to be a part of this process as we move forward. But a couple of questions, I think most have been addressed, but some of the things that came out in public comment, and I don't know if Paul or Ryan, you can address this, was without our current IT staff, how would we have distributed Chromebooks? So I'm assuming I have an answer to that now after listening to you, but if we were faced in this and you were the ones in charge of our contract doing this, can you just quickly address how you would have responded?
Sure. I can take that one. So we have deployed, I want to say probably close to 12,000 Chromebooks since this pandemic hit. We do that. First of all, it's done very strategically. We are very conscientious, I will tell you, about the pandemic, about social distancing, about the things that are important for us. Everything was about safety first. That's not just for my staff, but your staff as well as your community. So we take it in steps, and we have put on-site personnel in isolation, what I'll call isolation groups, where they have, taken larger areas and done deployments with multiple people in order to get things prepped and ready to go. There's a number of different strategies that we've implemented in districts depending on how the district felt distribution should happen. And again, we're very conscientious about the safety factor. So I don't want to just walk up and hand somebody a box, but I think we've come up with many different strategies on how we've done those deployments, and worked with districts on what made sense for them and how that would be done. And like I said, we deploy them every day. We did probably 600 or 800 today alone. So that's something that we've been working on constantly since this thing happened. We do have documentation. Just to give you an example, we have documentation that our staff have to fill out to answer some questions to make sure that they have, not traveled in the last 14 days, that they have, not come in unnecessary contact. In order to try and help with that safety, we want to make sure they have gloves and masks. We want, in order to be able to do that. So we do have, and then we have an approval process. We have what we, our essential staff, very similar to what Farmington is, right? And so, but even our essential staff have to go through the approval process. So that comes with a 24-hour prior request for the staff to go on site, and then goes through an approval process. For the field, it will route through Ryan, it routes through myself, it routes through Tammy Evans, our CIO. Like I said, there's documentation that's shared. We also have documentation for them that the rules that they should be following while they're on site. Don't use vending machines, and a lot of that stuff. We have all of those things documented out for those people.
Yeah, it's really a district. Thanks, Paul. It's really also a district decision. So our staff that's on site, of course, the safety is the number one concern, but we have so many different models of how districts across Oakland County have distributed. Everyone from up in Holly, the first responders are delivering Chromebooks to people's front porch, to school buses that are delivering lunches in the other districts, to drive ups where the parent will come up with an ID, show the ID through the window. The staff would leave the Chromebook on a table, and then it's a contactless exchange. So with the safety being the number one concern, and we have so many different models, and really the opportunity of this model is your on-site coordinator being able to hear these discussions and hopefully bring back to the central office, the cabinet, of these strategic decisions of how you deploy Chromebooks in COVID-19. How is the best way to do it? So, you might have 5 ideas. We might bring you 5 ideas and say, as a district like Farmington, how do you want to handle the deployment? We hear this district's doing this. And it's really that's the value add that we think we add by doing this together.
Thank you. And then can you just touch base on, I know each year we re-image our computers. I know last year we didn't have the capacity to do that all within house. How would you guys handle that? Would that now change and we would have the capacity, being that we have the broader spectrum of opportunity, or how would re-imaging of computers?
Go ahead, Brian. I'll let you take it. Oh, I was going to say, so we actually, so with the large scope of work we have, part of the strength of the service that we bring forth is the massive resources that we have. And what the coordinators do and directors do prior to the end of the school year is they get together and they start to strategically map out all of the summer work for every one of those districts, right? So every district we have, all of the re-imaging that would need to happen in Farmington, and phone deployments and security camera deployments and all that. And what we do is we structure all of that work out, excuse me, from the day teachers leave or whenever the district work can start up till the start of school. And then we mobilize large teams or groups in order to handle one portion of the work or another. So a team of people may come in to do imaging. That might include half of the Farmington localized staff plus 3 or 4 other resources. They'll come in, and in a matter of, because again, we're doing such mass and with so many, in a matter of a couple of days, they'll do that deployment, they'll get all that imaging done, and then that group will pick up and move on to the next project. But they lay out all of the work through a project scope. We set up Gantt charts to run all of that to maintain, time frames and resources. We even go as far as to say, okay, who's taking vacations when, who is, what do we know about when people are going to be on or off site, so we can maintain, and maintain that Gantt efficiently from the start till the end of the summer work.
Yeah, we know that specifically that when, teachers and students aren't in buildings, we can work a little bit differently. That projector bulb's not going to go out when it's the middle of July. Districts, buildings typically, like let's say in July, are very, they're going through their cleaning routines and stuff. So we kind of restructure our teams during that period, as Paul said, to get the mass amount of work done. And that affords us the opportunity that if a district, has a large capital project or a large deploying 2,000 new machines, we move those resources around when everyone else is away. We also do that when there's we all try to have a common calendar across the state and across Oakland County, but that never happened. So we figure out how to staff our service desk, how to staff everybody to keep everybody with a world-class delivery service.
Thank you very much. I think everything else you pretty much answered as people were asking throughout. So I know we've grilled you tonight, but thank you for enduring our questions, because it's an important decision. It does impact the livelihoods of potentially of some of our staff, and so it's not something we're entering into so lightly. We take this as important and serious, and certainly, as we've said, COVID has put us in a different position than where we thought we were going to be right now. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. We understand this is very strategic direction. We don't like to enter into contracts. This isn't something that a district does for 1 year, 2 years. This is a decision that we like to say a district does for the foreseeable future, because we really, well, it's a process.
Thank you again. We will. And is there any other questions before I move forward? Or Mrs. Kaminsky was going to add a comment. So Mrs. Kaminsky.
Yep. Really quickly, I just wanted to clarify, Mrs. Weems had mentioned what our current staffing. I think she mentioned we're operating with 7 and we would be fully staffed at 9. It's actually that we have 9 staff currently, and we would be at 11 staff if we were fully staffed. So I just wanted to make that known that we're currently at 9.
Thank you for that
clarification. Can I just ask one more clarifying question then? So yes. The cost comparison though assumes 11. Right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right, we'll be moving to our next item under discussion items, which is nutrition services, servicing equipment bid. And I believe Mrs. Davis is here with us tonight.
Hello, good evening. So bids were received on March 23rd for the nutrition serving equipment. This equipment would replace the existing equipment at Beachview, Gill, Pembroke, and Longacre elementary schools. The district received bids from 5 different companies ranging from $108,000 to $171,000. The Nutrition Services Department recommends awarding the nutrition serving equipment bid to Stafford Smith & Corp. In the amount of $145,976. Their bid was awarded by the highest number of points. Stafford Smith has been awarded previous bids in the district serving equipment and has provided us excellent service. A formal recommendation will be given at the next board meeting, but all funds will be paid for out of the Nutrition Services Fund.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members? Mrs. Cummings.
Hello. So,
hi.
Could you explain? I'm looking at or it's getting late. It's past my bedtime here. Not really, but okay. I'm looking at the spreadsheet that you provided, the Farmington Public Schools nutrition serving equipment with the it's dated March 23rd and it has the points. Can you explain the awarding of points and that process and how that happens?
Yes, we awarded based on, I'm pulling up the form right now too, based on the price, if it was woman-owned or small business, and the minority. And basically, no one was a minority or a small business. The quality was all there in that, but the points we based on was the price. The 2 companies, Chef's Depot bid on an alternate for $122,000, but they did not supply us any of the spec sheets that came with the bid, so we could not compare. And then Burkett and Sons gave us two prices, one for the equipment that we did spec, and then they did give us an alternate bid of $108,000. But again, I didn't feel that their alternate met all of our needs and was keeping with our consistency within all the schools in Farmington that we've been implementing the new equipment. So that's where we came up with, so the actual equipment that we bid out was the lowest price was given to Stafford Smith.
Okay, because when looking at the grid, when looking at the spreadsheet, it, you know, other bidders were lower, but what you're saying is the bid didn't meet the specifications, or it didn't meet what you're looking for. So really the low bid that met the specifications was the Stanford Smith.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Seeing no further questions, we will move to the next item, which is action items. First being items from the treasurer. Mr. Rich?
I move that the Board of Education approve the expenditures as outlined in the expenditure printout dated April 21st, 2020 as follows. General Fund, $9,456,615. General Fund Athletics, $157,885. Nothing from the Debt Fund. Capital Projects, 2018 Bond Fund, $1,271,829. From the Nutrition Services Fund, $191,902. And the Benefit Stabilization Fund, $910,083. For a total of $11,988,314.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Rich that we approve the expenditures as outlined in the expenditure printed dated.
It's late, Madam President. The motion is from Mrs. Weems.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Mr. Rich made the motion, you seconded.
Nope.
Correct.
There
I
has not
started with
been
Pardon me, Mr. Rich?
so I started with I move that.
That's what
Oh,
that's
thank you,
yeah, that.
I
Yep.
second.
That's okay.
It's
So
late for me.
That's quite all right.
I'm going to stay with, I have a motion from Mr. Rich that we approve the expenditures as outlined in the expenditure printout dated April 21st, 2020 as read, seconded by Mrs. Weems. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Mrs. Smith, would you please do roll call vote?
Ms. Weems?
Yes.
Ms. Weems?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Mukama?
Yes.
Ms. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
You can move forward, Mrs. Smith.
I myself, yes. Miss Green.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, moving to our next item, consent agenda. Ms. Weems.
I move to approve the April 21st, 2020 consent agenda as follows. The approval of the minutes for the April 7th, 2020 special meeting and closed session, and the April 7th, 2020 regular meeting, and also with respect to personnel items.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Weems to approve the consent agenda as written and read for April 21st, 2020, seconded by Mrs. Cummings. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Mrs. Smith, will you please do a roll call vote?
Mr. Mukama?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Ms. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
You can go ahead.
Ms. Weems?
Yes.
I myself, yes. Ms. Green?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Moving to the next item on our agenda, announcements from our superintendent. Dr. Herrera? Are you awake?
I was kind of enjoying just listening there for a while. I have to admit. No, I appreciate President Green letting me kind of jump in with my brief comments earlier in the meeting. But I do want to, just mention that I appreciate the board's engagement in these discussions tonight, both the MYP and the tech service agreement. You fully have a good understanding of the magnitude of both decisions, what they mean to the district, and how they're going to impact staff and students. And I think you've handled some very challenging decisions that were handed to you, mid-year, and especially at a time when we have a very tough climate to deal with issues to begin with. So I appreciate how you handled these issues tonight, and I certainly appreciate the fact that you challenged us on some questions. You certainly considered community input, and I couldn't ask more from you as a board. So again, thank you for your engagement in these conversations tonight.
Dr. Herrera, one thing that I would ask of you is, will you talk about the difference between IT support and instructional technology?
Yeah, there was a couple of the things that when I brought in the consultant, the reason I brought the consultant is because he has a lot of experience not only working with consortium agreements, but also with one-to-one implementations and also even from a tech position, what it means to create transformational spaces. So I knew he would have a vision for where our district would likely head in the next 3 to 5 years. So part of our discussion was my concern with the tech agreement offering instructional technology services as well. I believe those are services that are part of our teaching and learning environment. And those positions are actually, for our district, belong to our teachers union, the FEA. And so I believe that the direction we'll likely head is creating more instructional tech capacity with all of our district leaders, our leaders, and our instructional coaches. And so that's not a model that you can outsource. That's where we need to build our own capacity within our own instructional staff. So unless we're going to outsource all of our instructional consultant and coaches, I believe that's where we need to develop that capacity. So instructional technology coaching folks will remain part of our instructional staff and not be outsourced.
Thank you for that clarity. In following the MASB recommendations related to digital meetings, it is recommended that all votes, including the adjournment, go by roll call votes. So this evening we will make sure we implement that. And so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oops, Mr. Muckmall got there.
I move we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Rich, are you my second there?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Muckmall to adjourn, supported by Mr. Rich. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Mrs. Smith, will you please do our last roll call vote for the evening?
Mr. Mukamal?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Ms. Weems?
Yes.
Ms. Cummings?
Yes.
I myself, yes. Ms. Green?
Yes. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Be safe.
Good night.
Good night.